students from using this social media. I repeat.
What?
This is the most shocking announcement to Emma. As a mini-influencer, Instagram is not the only place where she shows off her body, but also her most profitable means of making money.
You know what? It's all because of Scarlett.
Emma says, surreptitiously surfing Instagram. Mina looks at Emma's old posts. Those are photos of her, Emma, and other hot Instagrammers bullying Scarlett for fun. A few weeks later, Scarlett disappeared. People say she moved to another school. But strangely enough, Emma and Mina's famous Instagram friends are also missing for unknown reasons.
But do you think those disappearances have anything to do with her?
Emma clicks her tongue. She doesn't care. Emma and Mina are both obsessed with Instagram. Wherever Emma goes, she takes pictures and updates them on her Instagram. That night, Emma sees Mina posting a picture of fried chicken, presumably sent by the advertising agency. So Emma calls Mina to ask about it. Mina is wearing the same pair of pajamas as her. Just then, Emma heard the bell ring. Mina said,
Maybe the company has sent another product. I'm gonna go get it.
A few minutes pass. Mina's not returning yet. Emma asks impatiently,
Hey, are you still there?
At that moment, the screen goes black and turns off. Maybe Mina's left the phone on dead again, Emma thinks. The next day, Mina doesn't come to school. A few days later, Emma calls her, but there's no response.
Did she go somewhere far away to shoot?
Emma is a little worried. After John's algebra class again, Emma pulls out her phone to surf Instagram. With her hand bored, she takes a picture of Mr. John's lecture and posts it without caption. Math sucks. A few minutes later, her picture got 100 likes. That night, Emma goes to bed at 10 o'clock as usual. These days, she's been seeing a pickup truck appear across from her bedroom. Feeling unsettled, Emma tries to look inside, but no one seems to be there. So she decides to go to sleep and can't stop thinking about Mina.
I'll go over her house tomorrow.
When Emma wakes up in the middle of the night, it has been really dark. Jesus, it's so cold in here. She looks out the window. It has been open already.
Did I forget to close the door?
Annoyed, Emma reached into the bedside lamp to find the switch. Just then, she realized there's something off. The electric switch feels warm and strangely soft. Only now does Emma squint her eyes in the dark. She gets startled when she realizes that there's someone standing near the bed, staring dead at her. Emma panics and quickly withdraws her hand. She's pinched by the roofied cloth, slowly faints before making any sound. Revenge for Scarlett! Revenge for Scarlett! Revenge for Scarlett! Emma wakes up, finding herself in a room in the basement. Her head hurts like hell. She tries to regain her sanity. Gosh, a stench hits her nose, making her nauseous. She just realizes that all the walls are covered by her Instagram photos and her friends, including Mina. On the floor, there are piles of black, glossy bags tied to the top.
Am I in Scarlett's shelter?
Emma's shivered by her thought. At that moment, she hears the door open, and then the shadow of a man coming. God, that is Teacher John. He's still wearing his school uniform, his face and body covered in blood. Little rat, are you awake? Emma doesn't understand what's going on. She tries to get down until she's stopped by another pile of plastic bags. Go to hell, he says as he raises his sharp axe.
Please, please forgive me. I won't tell anyone.
Emma cries, panics, even though she doesn't understand anything. Emma plunges into the plastic bags and frantically hides. Teacher John, still holding the axe, slowly follows her. Teacher John strongly swings his axe down, but Emma dodges it. The plastic bag on the side pops open. Gosh, That's a leg on the fluid. Despite it being neatly cut, Emma still recognizes Mina's double pajamas. That's when she realized that she was lying on plastic bags of bodies. Emma's so scared and disgusted that she shivers. John's laughter rings out again. You just now realize that? Then the axe swings again, but this time she can no longer escape. Before she passes out, Emma sees Mr. John on his knees, holding a photo and crying. Scarlet, I'm sorry. I should have ended this sooner.
It's almost 11 o'clock. Hopefully they're still open.
Marble said to herself. She was on her way home when the hunger pain came. She stopped by Burger King's drive-thru to buy some food. When she pulled up to the order machine, there was no staff's welcome.
Why is it so quiet in there?
Thinking a while, she raised her voice.
Hello? Is there anybody there? I'd like to get some food.
The order board lit up, but still no response.
Hello? Can you hear me? Looks like I have to go inside to order.
She drove to the pickup counter, inside of which was an employee dressed in a Burger King mascot. He was doing something in the kitchen.
Hey you, I placed an order earlier in the drive-thru line, but no one was there, so I came inside.
Hearing her voice, the man turned around and stared at her face. His eyes were bloodshot. His face was white. He was holding a piece of fresh meat, trying to spread an industrial smile. He said,
Hello, how can I help you?
He raised his hand to adjust the paper crown on his head. Marble was too hangry to care about this man's scary look. She immediately said,
Can I order here?
Sure, of course.
Okay, can I have a regular hamburger and a strawberry shake?
Got it. It'll just be a few minutes.
15 minutes had passed. Marble was still in the car waiting.
What's wrong with this place?
She rolled down the window and called inside.
Hey! Why is it taking so long? I've been waiting for 15 minutes!
Only silence.
Fair enough. Let's go in there to see where my food is.
Marble drove to the parking lot and entered the store. The store was unusually quiet. Suddenly, she heard rustling just above her head. She looked up to the ceiling and saw that somebody was crawling in a plastic pipe.
Hey! Who's up there?
That figure suddenly stopped.
I know someone's up there!
The shadow continued to crawl until the end of the pipe, then stuck its head out. It was a man in a Burger King uniform. Before Marble could say anything, the man raised a shushing finger, telling Marble to be silent. Then he whispered, You should get out of here. Marble still didn't understand what was going on. She angrily said,
What a bunch of nonsense!
Then she walked over to the counter and peeked into the kitchen to see the mascot guy doing something. Marble loudly called out,
Hey you! What's wrong with this place?
Hearing Marble's voice, the man immediately turned around and stared at her.
Oh, it's you!
Yes, it's me. Where's my food?
With that industrial smile again, he walked towards the cash register slowly.
Are you hungry?
Yes! I'm starving! Bring me my food!
Just a second.
He turned around, walked into the kitchen, and grabbed a hamburger with his hand.
Here you go. A regular hamburger, right?
Marble suddenly trembled when she saw the hamburger in his hand. It was not an ordinary burger. Between the two buns was a human hand still bleeding. At this moment, Marble suddenly remembered the employee crawling in the pipe earlier. She turned her shaking head to look at the pipe in the ceiling. Just then, the Burger King man yanked her by the hair and smashed her head against the cash register.
Where are you looking? Aren't you going to take the burger?
Marble cried and begged.
Please! Please! Let me go!
Eat your burger.
While he spoke, the crazy Burger King man stuffed the burger into her mouth. Marble tried to resist, but the guy laughed and forced her to eat the human hand burger.
Help! Please, help!
Marble pleaded for help from the man inside of the pipe, but got no answer.
No one can help you. No one! Now eat your hamburger! Now eat your hamburger!
She had no more strength to resist and soon fainted. He grabbed her by the
No
hair
one can
and
help
dragged her
you.
into the kitchen. At this time, the other man looked down from the pipe and desperately said, "I'm sorry." Marble burst into tears and passed out. The next morning, the police received the report from Marble's family. They went to Burger King only to find 2 victims dead in a state of disfigurement, including Marble. Some of her body parts were scattered in the oven, and some were found in a blender. According to the employee in the pipe, the murderer killed the original employee wearing the mascot, then put on that suit himself, entered the staff area, and massacred the employees on that shift. Since then, no matter how hard the police tried, they never captured that Burger King murderer. But someone said that they could see a figure, a Burger King mascot, walking around at 11 o'clock at night.
It's all my fault. I shouldn't have let you make that stupid video. Ryan, please forgive me. No, are you crazy?
Maddie knew Ryan always came up with bizarre ideas, but she never thought it would go this far.
Come on, Maddie. Let's make that video together. Mr. Beast did it too, and look how many views he got. 150 million!
While saying that, Ryan pointed at the screen. Maddie didn't know what to say because she was pretty convinced. Ryan and Maddie are best friends. After finishing high school, they dropped out of college to do YouTube together. Ryan, who has a good look, is the one who would love to be on the screen. However, Maddie is the content creator and also his manager. Maddie sighed, feeling she was about to lose this argument.
Suppose I say yes. Then where do we shoot?
Ryan got so happy hearing that.
I know the place. My buddy, please say yes.
And his look made her fall completely.
Okay, then let's make a plan.
Ryan was overjoyed. He said cheerfully,
As long as there are no spiders, I'll be fine.
Then, Ryan left, leaving Maddie with a bunch of paperworks. Looks like Ryan is going out on a date with a girl he just met on Tinder a few weeks ago, Maddie thought. And finally, that day has come. Ryan is the boldest man, Maddie has to admit. Since Ryan wanted to make it as creepy as possible, he decided to take on the challenge at an abandoned cemetery. Although Maddie doesn't believe in ghosts and spirits, this place really gives her shivers. Just like what Mr. Beast did, Maddie and Ryan rented a large glass coffin. Then they hired a crane driver to slowly place it underground. The AC connected directly to the coffin will help Ryan breathe.
Okay, get in.
Maddie told Ryan while having a quick look around to make sure he has enough snacks, water, and bottles to clean. Ryan ducked inside. God, only he has the guts to do this. If it was Maddie, just being in such a narrow space would literally drive her crazy.
Hello guys, 24-hour buried alive challenge. Start!
Then, Ryan excitedly said to Maddie, who was standing dumbfounded at the top,
Buried me alive, Maddie!
Then Maddie started turning on the camera. The thick layer of soil was slowly brought down, soon covering the surface of the coffin. When everything was done, it was already dark.
Can you hear me, Ryan?
Maddie spoke into the radio, checking the signal underground. But Maddie didn't hear anything from Ryan. Then she began to worry.
Ryan, answer me!
Just then, he hastily replied.
Here, I've just peed a bit. What a mess down here.
Maddie told him to keep an eye on the camera.
Don't worry. See you soon.
As it started to rain, Maddie got into the car and lay down to rest. Fatigue quickly hit her, and she slowly fell asleep.
Hello guys, it's been 2 hours and I want to show you this. Can you see that? God, there's so many disturbing animals down here. Since I saw it, you guys will have to see it too. Looks like I just saw something.
When Maddie woke up, it was already dawn. She turned on the walkie-talkie to talk to Ryan so he wouldn't be sad.
Ryan, in case you didn't know, it's already morning.
Maybe he's still sleeping, she thought.
Jesus, you take the challenge to sleep all the time?
Then, Maddie threw the radio away and started her morning. About an hour later, Maddie finished eating an apple and a few sandwiches. At this time, the sun was also shining overhead.
Maybe Ryan's awake by now.
She checked Ryan through the radio again.
Ryan, shouldn't you wake up now?
No one answered.
Ryan, stop your stupid prank.
Still no response. God, could it be? Maddie rushed to the AC area where Ryan's oxygen was provided. The machine is still operating normally. She was relieved, but still worried.
Ryan, if you don't answer, I will dig you up immediately and the challenge will end.
1 minute. 2 minutes passed. Still nothing happened. It's like Maddie's sitting on fire, and she called the crane and asked to dig the coffin up. It had been raining, so plowing the ground was much more difficult. It took half an hour for the lid of the coffin to gradually reveal itself. God, Ryan was curled up in a coffin. His whole body stiffened. His eyes rolled back and his mouth twitched. Ryan is in a state of extreme fear, and if Maddie's not mistaken, he may not be alive anymore.
Ryan! No!
After that, Maddie fainted and didn't know what else to do. According to what she heard, the crane man called the police. According to the investigation, maybe in the middle of the night, Ryan had a panic attack, combined with the narrow space which led to this tragic death. Before panicking, police found another video.
For you. You're so sorry for your sufferings.
In the video is Ryan with an eager look on his face saying,
Maddie, because I don't have the courage to speak to you directly, I will say it now. Now you see it, you must be editing videos. Maddie, I love you. I know I keep you busy by disappearing a lot these days. But actually I prepared a vacation for you and me. If you don't mind, please be my girlfriend. So?
Maddie's heart clenched. If only she knew Ryan's feelings in advance. If only he had told her frankly before taking on this stupid challenge. If only she hadn't let the spider in because she was so frustrated. Things would have been different.
It happened in summer several years ago. That day, I discovered a painting titled Mrs. Night Friend while cleaning Lily's room. It was about Lily and a woman with extremely scary bloodshot eyes looked, surrounded by red, orange, yellow spots that looked like fire. The problem was that I had never heard of any friends from her before. I asked Lily about her new friend right at dinner. Lily happily showed me the picture. I asked her name.
Mrs. Knight, look here.
She looked over and pointed to the name in the corner of the picture. I asked her about the red eyes.
Because they were burned, Mommy.
Lily said innocently as she finished her dinner. The answer creeped me out, but I just simply thought that she had a good imagination.
So I can meet your friends?
I looked at her tenderly. She suddenly froze. Her face turned darkened. She stared at me with her big, beautiful eyes.
Do you really want to see her?
My heart suddenly pounded, and I nodded slightly.
Let me ask her first.
She finished her words and left the dining room. Since then, I felt the paranormal things happening in the house. For example, the sound of footsteps walking upstairs, or the crunching from the kitchen. But every time I went to check, I just found nothing. I thought it was some strange animal entering, because there were actually many trees and bushes out surrounding our house. That night, I brought some fruit to Lily's room. Then I heard her whispering to someone. There was a loud bang when I was about to knock on the door. I panicked and quickly turned the doorknob, but it was locked from the inside. I banged on the door, panicking, calling out,
Lily, what's happening? Open the door!
After a while, Lily opened the door. I looked inside but didn't find anything suspicious. Lily just stood there, bewildered, and looked at me. I asked her what happened. She said with a frown,
Mrs. Knight, she doesn't want to see you, Mom.
Then her gaze gradually shifted in another direction. Looking at her dirty hands, I guessed that she was just trying to distract me from punishing her. I sighed, took her to the bathroom to wash her hand and face, while warning her from playing with dirt before going to bed ever again. I finished taking out the trash, then came inside. That was when I saw Lily standing on the edge of the stairs. What was weird was that Lily was blindfolded, and she looked like she was going to fall. I worriedly yelled, which startled her. She took off her blindfold and smiled at me. She told me that she was playing hide and seek with Mrs. Knight, and asked me to join her, and promised to let me meet her mysterious friend.
Now we hide, and you seek, okay?
She said, handing me the blindfold. I put it on, then counted from 1 to 10. The sound of pounding footsteps faded away. After that, I left my spot, starting to find her. I guessed that she was hiding in the closet, so I went there to find her. I called her name, then I heard applause from her bedroom as a response. I followed the wall, opened the door, and walked in.
Boo!
I opened the closet, but it was completely silent inside. The sound of clapping by my ears made me jump. My heart suddenly beat so fast.
Mommy?
Lily called me. I quickly took off my blindfold and ran towards her.
Why don't you go find me?
She looked at me reproachfully.
I thought you were hiding in the closet.
I explained.
So you found Mrs. Knight?
She seemed surprised. I was a little startled, but before I could react, she pulled me and said,
This time, Mrs. Knight will find. We must hide carefully.
After she finished talking, she giggled, and while counting, she pulled me out of the room. I hid in the kitchen and waited anxiously, but still no one came looking for me, only the sound of footsteps outside the living room. It was Lily's voiceless scream. I quickly jumped out. The scene in front of my eyes terrified me. A tall person was carrying Lily on her shoulder. I realized it was Mrs. Knight in Lily's picture. My daughter screamed and struggled. I panicked. Without thinking much, I pushed the woman down. Only then did I see her face. I was terrified. Her face was full of crimson scars that huddled together. Especially her eyes were red, and her lips were mixed with the scars, revealing only a wheezing hole. She went crazy, pushed me down to the floor, and rushed to strangle me. Lily stood beside her, begging, but she squeezed even tighter. I struggled and grabbed a hard object on the floor, quickly hitting the woman on her head. When she stepped back, I hugged Lily and ran into the small storage room, locking the door. The woman screamed and banged on the door repeatedly. I was afraid to hug Lily in my arms, trembling to dial 911. The woman couldn't open the door, so she left. Before I could breathe in relief, I smelled gasoline, then burning. Smoke began to pour in from the outside. Soon the room was filled with smoke. I tried to hug Lily tightly, hoping she wouldn't breathe in the smoke. I could feel myself fading away. At the same time, I heard police sirens outside. Mrs. Knight was arrested while holding a gas can. Turns out it was a man with a mental illness. He used to be the owner of the house. Mrs. Knight had a 5-year-old child and loved her very much. But after discovering that she wasn't his, but his wife and her lover, he went mad and set the house on fire. The fire killed his wife and daughter and burned his entire face. According to the police, he had been living in our house for a month. I shuddered to discover that it was around the time when we moved in. Then I recalled the memory of the woman, the sparks of fire in Lily's painting, and the name Mrs. Nightfriend, and I suddenly realized that day was the same day when he set the fire a few
Day of my life.
What an exhausting day.
There was a groan from somewhere outside the store. Lucy cautiously peeked out to see. It was a ragged homeless man. He was staring at the frozen meat counter. His mouth was drooling. His bloodshot eyes were wide open. His hand slid across the glass, which made a creaking sound. Lucy timidly asked,
Sir, how can I help you?
But he didn't say a word, just let out annoying, heavy breathing. Looking at the thin man, Lucy sighed softly.
He must have been starving for a long time.
There was brief news on TV about some apartment break-ins in the area, but Lucy didn't care much because the apartment complex she lived in had the best security. Suddenly, Lucy received a text from her roommate saying that she wouldn't be home and telling Lucy to lock the door carefully.
Never mind. Enjoy the night.
Lucy put the phone down on the table and looked up at the clock on the wall. The shift was finally over. She locked the door to check the goods before the next shift coworker arrived. Holding up a cold piece of meat, Lucy was startled by a strange noise. She turned around to find that the homeless man was still there. He licked his lips and smiled at Lucy, and then he kept banging his head on the front door like crazy. She staggered backward and slumped under the counter, while the bangs grew louder, until she heard the sound of a key being put into the lock and the door slightly opened. Lucy quickly grabbed a pen from the counter and stood up. The person who just walked in was David, the co-worker on the next shift. "What's wrong?" David saw her panic and felt a little confused.
Didn't you see anyone at the door?
No. Anyway, what the heck is this? Ew, that's disgusting. David looked at the glass, frowning slightly. Lucy shivered when she saw the stain, but it seemed like he had already left. The clock struck 12 o'clock, so Lucy hurriedly let David take over and quickly went out the door. She comforted herself with the thought that maybe it was just a weird customer at night. Just then on the street, there was almost no one passing by. She walked along the pavement under the yellow, dim lights. Lucy heard the annoying rustle of slippers. She turned her head to squint at every corner of the empty street, but no one was there. So she continued to walk, But after a few steps, she stopped, still hearing footsteps whispering in her ears. She looked back. It was just herself on the road. She walked faster. The rustling appeared again, seemingly speeding up like her. This time it came along with a whistling sound. She could feel her heart pounding in her chest, and sweat soaked her uniform. She kept walking without daring to look back.
It's almost home. I will be fine.
Lucy reassured herself, but couldn't stop her body from shaking uncontrollably. The sound of footsteps running after Lucy became louder and more urgent. She ran up the stairs, but she was so panicked that she tripped. She suppressed the pain, picked up her things, and ran as fast as possible. Finally, Lucy frantically put the key in the lock.
Oh, no. Oh, no.
The man was so close. Footsteps and rattling of the stairs drew nearer. The whistle echoed throughout the dark corridor.
Please, please.
She finally got the key in the lock. She turned the key, rushed into the house, and slammed the door. The man also rushed over at this time, only a split second before he was able to catch Lucy. She closed the door and locked it, then gasped for air, slid to the floor, and began to cry.
Open the door, you little rat! Open it!
The man banged on the door and shouted, his hand constantly tugging at the doorknob. Lucy was panic-stricken and stepped back. Suddenly, everything fell silent. Lucy raised her head, trying to crawl up to the peephole to look outside. Suddenly, he jumped out of nowhere to meet Lucy's eyes. Knowing he couldn't do anything here, the man licked the peephole on the door and left. When there was no sound anymore, Lucy shakingly cracked open her door and stared out.
Hey!
The pervert pressed his face to the cracked door, so close that his drool splashed on her face. Lucy was frightened and stepped back. The crazy man turned the doorknob like crazy.
Open the door!
He shouted as he banged on the door. Lucy was shaking as she dialed the phone.
It's 911. What's your emergency?
Please help. Someone is trying to break into my house.
Hold on. We're on the way.
The man heard what Lucy was saying. He stopped pounding the door and left. Lucy leaned on the door, sobbing, her whole body trembling with such—
Oh, shit!
Welcome to Hawaii.
Chloe put a white shell necklace on me and kissed me on the cheek. Wow, it's so beautiful. Thank you. Then I was taken to a motel near the center. It was strange to see that the place was pretty quiet even in the traveling season.
The guests are all gone for sightseeing,
Chloe explained. The daughter of the motel owner, Chloe, was confident that she knew the island very well. She wanted to be my tour guide, and I said yes. So we took a tour in Hawaii, to the traditional market for some cuisine, and then to Waikiki Beach.
Where are you going?
I'm thirsty. I'm going to buy some water.
Let me go with you.
Well, okay. I found it a bit odd when Chloe tried to stay near me all the time. She even followed me to the bathroom door. Well, you don't have to follow me all the time, you know.
No, you are a special guest.
Then we met Chloe's boyfriend, Kai. As soon as Kai saw me, he shook my hand, hugged me, and kissed my cheek in the Hawaiian tradition. Aha! Welcome to Hawaii, my friend. Kai patted me on the back as if we had known each other for years. So Kai and Chloe took me around together. I was probably walking too fast or something, but the two of them kept falling behind my back. After a day on the streets, I felt quite tired, so I wanted to get back to the motel. But unexpectedly, Kai and Chloe came along.
We have to make sure you're okay.
You're a special guest. Well, thank you very much. Kai behaved so weird. He wasn't angry even when seeing Chloe laughing and getting close to me. Getting back to my room, I took a shower and then decided to go outside for a breeze. However, when I walked to the door and looked through the peephole, I was startled. What's wrong with them? I felt uncomfortable, so I opened the door. Hi, is there something wrong? No, not at all.
Actually, we wanted to invite you to the beach party.
Oh, I was reading into it. Wow, I'd love to. I was watching the pictures when there was a knock on the door. It was Kai and Chloe.
It's time.
Chloe handed me a glass of red wine. It'll bring you luck. Oh, this is so strong. I was surprised, and not until they both stood up and stared at me did I feel dizzy. There was something in the cup of wine. Before I completely passed out, I saw Chloe and Kai grin evilly. When I woke up, still a bit dizzy, I found myself tied to a pillar and Chloe busy doing something. She said something to Kai and he turned to me. Although I was scared, I pretended to faint to find a chance to escape. I listened to the conversation between the two and couldn't help but shiver. Were they planning for a sacrifice? Then my life would be at stake. When Kai untied the rope to bring me to Chloe, I quickly bit his ear. Kai screamed in pain and pushed me aside. I took that chance to run away. No time to see the direction. I just followed the small path and ran into the forest. While running, I could still hear Kai chasing from behind. The more I was scared, the more I tried to run, not daring to stop even for a second. I didn't dare to stop running until making sure they stopped chasing. Where was I right now? In front of me was a corpse tied to the tree. On its neck was a white shell necklace that looked exactly like the one Chloe had given me. It reminded me of the strange feeling I had when arriving at the motel. The feeling of being completely deserted.
They've all gone out for sightseeing.
Only now did I understand what kind of sightseeing Chloe was referring to. Suddenly, Kai appeared in front of my eyes and pushed me to the ground. He rushed to grab my neck. I was so scared, panicked, and struggled. And in the moment when I thought I was about to suffocate, I, fortunately, grabbed a stone. I used all my strength to hit him on the head. He screamed in pain to let go of me. I immediately ran away. No longer seeing any of them behind, I kept running down the small path until finally escaping the forest.
Hi, my name is Noah, and I'm 10 years old. At this age, I'm supposed to hang out and party all day. Yet, my parents are a bit overprotective. They still hire a babysitter to watch me 24/7. Her name is Evelyn. This week, my parents are on vacation, so it's just me and Evelyn at home. Since my parents are not home, I have the whole house for myself. I've been laying down on this couch playing PS4 for what seems like hours. What? It's already 9 o'clock? It's strange. I don't even see Evelyn around. I still haven't had dinner yet. My stomach grumbles. Playing the game is more exhausting than I thought.
Evelyn?
I called out, but no one answered. Did she go out without me knowing? I guess I'll just have to make my own sandwich. As soon as I set foot on the ground, the electricity in the living room goes out.
Great timing.
I mumbled to myself. In the area where I live, power surges during this season are not uncommon. I guess that's the cause, which means I'll have to go downstairs to the kitchen to turn the power back on from the power box. The room was pitch black. I used the walls to guide me. I reach out my hand, reach out the kitchen. It's strange when I notice how quiet the house is. I don't hear the babysitter's radio or even my dog barking. All I can hear is the sound of my feet against the floor.
Evelyn, are you here?
I called out to Evelyn, just wanting something to break the silence. No response. She must have sneaked out to hang out with her boyfriend. As I got closer to the kitchen area, I noticed a strange scent that smells like raw meat. But it's natural for a kitchen to smell like meat. I tried to reason to myself, letting out a nervous chuckle.
Here it is.
I flick the switch. The lights blaze on, and I'm blinded for half a second. My eyes quickly adjust to the brightness, and I stop in horror at the sight that beholds me. God!
What the hell is this?
Lying on the floor behind the kitchen island is Evelyn. She was lying on her stomach, but her neck turned completely to the left at a 90-degree angle. Her eyes looked straight into my face. Red tears flowed from the corners of her eyes. She lay in a pool of blood. Around was a circle drawn in red ink. I trembled and drowned in fear. Suddenly, I heard footsteps approaching me. It's pretty close. Although I'm not even sure whether Evelyn is still alive or dead, the first thing the 10-year-old boy does is run to his bedroom and lock the door. I covered the blanket and lay there shivering. A second, 2 seconds, and a minute passed. Nothing happened. I called my mother, and after that, I was so tired that I fell asleep without realizing it. The sound of footsteps grew louder, louder. Someone opened the bedroom door. I woke up. Turns out it's just a nightmare. I heard the car engine outside the window, then the door opening. Mom is back with the police. In the end, all they found was a plugged-in PS4. The kitchen, the floor were empty. There was no sign of Evelyn or the circular bloodstains I described. I felt guilty, yet relieved. Maybe I was playing games for so long that I imagined that all. I apologized to my parents and went to my bedroom. As soon as the light came on, I was once again frozen. From the door, there's a set of bloody footprints that circle my bed, and then disappear under it.
Being a student in a big city is so difficult. After all, I decided to move to a remote rural area. To earn money, I applied for a job at Wendy's. The interview was smooth. The job didn't require much since there weren't many people in the area. While taking me around the restaurant, Mr. Royce, the manager, suddenly said, one more thing. Do not ever come near the kitchen. I acknowledged that at the fast food restaurant, the kitchen was where they keep the secret recipe, so I totally agreed. Beside Mr. Royce, there was an employee named Lynn and a chef that I barely knew his name. Lynn wore the uniform, makeup, and a wig that looked just like Wendy. We didn't talk much. Lynn was odd. She often looked around and didn't make any sound. Moreover, the next day, after bringing food for the customer, she threw up right there on her feet. And she was slapped right at the spot by the manager. The next afternoon, I went to work late. When I came in, Lynn was leaning out, peeping at the room inside. Isn't that the kitchen? I thought. Lynn, what are you doing? She was startled as she heard my voice. Stained cups and bowls on her hands were dropped, making a loud sound. Jesus, are you okay? I felt so bad that I ran to her to help. But strangely, Lynn was so frightened that she couldn't control her body. She was shaking like she had a seizure. Then I pointed somewhere. I turned around and saw Mr. Royce. Hi, boss. Lynn doesn't seem so well, so I'm gonna help her clean up right now. Yet the manager got mad. He held her hair and shouted, "This fat rat! How dare you!" Lynn was shaking even worse. Her body was shivering, foaming at her mouth. "No, no, no!" As a witness, I didn't know what to do. At that moment, Royce turned to me and said, "You are late today, so your salary will be deducted." After that, I was sent home. The day after, I went to work but didn't see Lynn. Instead, Mr. Royce was working. And days after that, Lynn was nowhere to be seen. So I thought she was fired. It was a Saturday night. I finished my shift at 11 p.m. There was no one in Wendy's store. I guessed Royce and the chef were in the kitchen. When I was about to lock the door, I couldn't find my key. Jesus, Royce is not gonna go easy on me. There was no choice for me. I had to come into the kitchen for the spare key. Mr. Royce? How strange. The kitchen was empty. There was only a boiling bone broth on the stove. I came in and found a half-opened door at the corner. Curiosity got the better of me, so I stepped in. Jesus, in front of me there was a stair to the basement. I had no idea that Wendy's had such a basement, I uttered. Then I followed the dark stairs and tried to step as gently as I could. When there were a few steps left, I started hearing people talking. Boss, the meat is so fat lately. It was the voice of the chef. Then Royce said, resources are rare these days, so stop complaining. It turned out to be a slaughter place. Right at that moment, the sound of a knife cutting hard on the table resounded, causing the floor to shake. The pig must be very big, which cost the chef so much strength, I thought. Then I felt something roll to my feet. Squinting to see clearly, I picked it up and found it was an eyeball with blood on it. That's horrible. I suddenly stepped back and accidentally made a sound. Who's that? It was Royce's voice. I'll check it. Then the chef's. I was freaked out. I tried to find a place to hide. As I turned around, I luckily found cold storage of meat. I quickly came in. In the dark, I felt relief because these messes might be a good place to hide. So I ducked into a corner when I heard the chef's footsteps getting closer and closer. I held my breath and waited. The place where I hid was extremely cramped. There was meat hanging above and below. Boo! I was startled and sat down on the floor. My hand touched the meat and it felt so sticky. That was when I realized that the things around me weren't meat, but looked like human bodies. Gosh, I was not a stranger, but Lynn. Oh no, it was her upper part. The lower part was cut down as the blood dried, and she was all cold. I tried not to scream. I just sat there, next to Lynn's dead body, until I could no longer hear the chef's steps. Because it was too cold, I crawled out. When I thought I would reach the door, suddenly I was blocked by a huge body. Gotcha! Right at that moment, all the lights turned on. The chef with the knife in his hand, standing right in front of me. I could see around by the light in the room. There was not only pork, but there were also human corpses hanging around. The chef slowly raised his knife and prepared to slash it. As everything got blurred, I fainted away. I didn't know how long, but when I woke up, I felt like I was flying. My feet didn't touch the ground, and my whole body ached. At that moment, Mr. Royce and the chef appeared. That's when I realized I was being hung up, but I couldn't scream anymore because I lost all feeling from the cold.
The Game of Chance event at the newly opened Starbucks store downtown. Although Elena and I arrived very early, the area in front of the store was already packed with many people. Everyone wanted to be the lucky owner of the prize, which was a limited edition cup. While waiting for the host, Elena and I each ordered a cup of coffee. It was good as always. After a while, the event started.
Dear customers, now it's time for me to draw the name of the luckiest and only guest to own this most beautiful cup. Who will be the lucky one?
That cup will belong to me.
Looking at the cup from afar, I silently wished that my name would be called. If I didn't win it, I thought I would negotiate and buy it back anyway.
And today's lucky customer is a guest named E-L-E-N-A. Yay! Elena! Please step onto the stage to receive this special cup.
Elena jumped for joy. I didn't know why, but while smiling at her, I was also a bit uncomfortable. On the way back, I asked to hold the cup for a second, but what she said got me so mad.
I'll never give it to you, Jade. That would also transfer my luck to you, and I got none left.
I went crazy and told myself that I would do anything to get that cup. At this moment, a truck came from afar. Elena was so happy about the limited edition cup that she didn't even notice. I was about to push Elena away, but in a flash of a moment, I thought about the cup and her arrogance, and so I just glared at her. The car crash sounded right next to my ears. Elena was now under the wheel of a truck. The Starbucks cup rolled out and stopped at my feet. I picked it up.
This has to be mine.
I turned to Elena and then ran off. The ambulance arrived shortly thereafter, but Elena was no longer breathing. After Elena's death, the entire Starbucks cup collection belonged to me.
Elena, if only you hadn't said those words, you wouldn't have taken that.
After moving to a new place and getting rid of Elena, I felt like a weight had been lifted off my shoulders. But things didn't last long. That night in my sleep, I heard Elena's voice. I woke up with sweat on my forehead in the dark room alone.
Maybe it was just a nightmare,
I thought to myself and tried to get back to sleep. During the following days, the same nightmare kept coming. I just closed my eyes and Elena's image appeared. After a few days of insomnia, my eyes were dark. I had to keep taking sleeping pills to get a full night's sleep, but nothing changed. That night, when I fell asleep after taking some medicine, the image of Elena appeared outside the door.
You tried to push me. Have all of those cups. Give me back.
I tried to sit up but couldn't move. I struggled in despair. Elena squeezed my throat tighter. Just when I was about to suffocate, I was able to get up. During that night, I was so scared that I couldn't sleep anymore. The next morning, I collected all of Elena's cups and took them home to her parents. I wanted to tell them everything about how I knew the truck was coming but did nothing. But before I could say anything, Elena's mother cried and told me how Elena wanted to give me the cup for my birthday to surprise me.
Oh, Elena.
After hearing Elena's mother's words, on the way back home, my mind went blank. Suddenly, in front of my eyes was a girl holding a Starbucks cup with a happy face. Crossing the street, a high-speed truck was coming from afar. I didn't think much before screaming out and then running to push the girl away. But before I passed out, the last image was Elena's face smiling. Omegle, but I can't skip anyone challenge? Sounds hot. A YouTube recommendation made me so curious about this new trend on Omegle. After a few seconds of hesitating, okay, maybe I should give it a try. The rule of the game was very simple. In any random chance, I can't be the one who presses the skip button. Okay, let's get started. I clicked video. The conversations were boring, but I couldn't skip them. Hell yeah. No matter how weird the stranger was, I couldn't skip. "If you don't want to talk, you can skip me," I told him after we connected for 1 minute. Faster than I expected. That guy raised his middle finger, then quit right away. "What the hell?" I frowned at his rude attitude. The next one, well, she was really a pretty girl.
Hi.
She started first. "Hi," I replied with a gentle smile. We just talked about some trends on social media recently. Good news. We seemed to get along quite well. The conversation was fun, and there was no sign of wanting to skip each other. "Hey, do you want to play a game?" I suggested playing Truth or Dare, and she said yes. On her first turn, she hit the truth. I was excitedly waiting for a secret to be revealed.
Okay, a fact about me. I killed someone.
What? I was surprised.
Yes, I killed a person.
She confirmed. And even though I told her to stop, she kept recounting every detail of the murder. I couldn't skip first, and Omegle didn't have a mute mode, so all I could do was listen politely. She said that she met the victim on the street. Then she followed her home and strangled her to death. But it didn't end there. She also chopped up the body, removed the organs, and threw them away.
It'll take the police weeks or even months to find the body.
She laughed like a psycho. My God, I'd never seen such a freaky girl. Her face turned cold when she talked about those bloody crimes. Hey, it's just a joke, isn't it? I had a chill down my spine but still tried to keep my voice calm. The Omegle challenge wasn't over yet, and I didn't want to fail like this.
Joke? Do I look like joking?
That was enough. I couldn't stand this creep. I clicked on the skip button. Well, looks like I've just lost this challenge, I said to the camera and then stopped recording. After that, I did some editing to the recording, then posted on my YouTube channel with the title, Omegle, but I can't skip anyone. The video included the weird conversation with that insane girl. After uploading, I went to bed and surfed TikTok for a while before falling asleep. A phone call woke me up at night. It was my friend Roger, and he sounded very serious.
Check your YouTube channel right now.
I quickly opened my phone to see what happened. OMG! I was surprised to see that my Omegle video had reached 500,000 views in just a few hours of posting. It's unbelievable, I told Roger.
Dude, read the comments,
Roger replied. I was completely shocked when I scrolled down to the comments section below. The girl in the last video is dead. Many comments told me that the girl I talked to on Omegle was dead. Police discovered that she was dismembered and her body parts were thrown everywhere, exactly like what she described to me in the video before. One comment criticized me that I had no shame in making a joke about death. But that wasn't a joke. I did talk to that girl. She probably is a ghost, a comment popped up. I was so confused. I didn't realize what was really going on. Everything was getting worse. I locked the comments section.
I don't know, Roger. I swear, I talked to her for real.
I screamed on the phone.
So you actually talked to a ghost?
I don't know. She was so real. It couldn't be fake. I replied to Roger while scrolling through the article about her case. That girl was indeed dead, and her body was found 2 days ago. This was nonsense. Although I confirmed that I did not fake the video, they didn't believe me. After that, because there were so many conflicting opinions, I had to delete the video. A few days later, the police came to find me. I was extremely scared at the time, but I honestly reported and handed over the video of the conversation as evidence to the police. Finally, the mystery was solved. It turns out that the girl on Omegle was actually killed. But the murderer, after killing her, used a software called Deepfake to pretend to be that girl and used it to spread around about his exploits. Fortunately, Little Caesars was my favorite pizzeria. Not only did they have the best pizzas, but it was also Sasha's workplace. To me, she was the greatest chef, and she made the best pizzas in the world. That day, I went to Little Caesars as usual. After ordering, I sat in my favorite seat. From this view, I could see Sasha step out sometimes. She looked so beautiful in Little Caesar's uniform with an apron. When the waiter brought the pizza out, I imagined it was Sasha. She was getting closer and now serving me the food.
Do you need anything else?
The waitress's voice woke me up. I shook my head and stared at the meal. While swallowing each bite with pleasure, I thought about the presents I gave her, wondering if she liked them or not. I sat at Little Caesars for a few hours, and before leaving, I left a note for Sasha. I wanted to wait outside until her shift ended. I stayed across the street and looked at the pictures of her. Whatever she did, she was so adorable. Even when she was sleeping, eating, walking, or making pizzas, she looked so gorgeous. Oh, there she was. For your information, I had a small gift for her and was dying to see her reaction. After a few steps, Sasha turned her head back. I hid behind the wall, trying not to let her find me. Then Sasha suddenly walked faster, so I had to speed up to keep up with her. Sasha? I suddenly appeared, touching her back. She screamed and ran away. I thought maybe she ran into some trouble, so I chased after her. I kept running and running, but ended up losing track of her. The next day, I went back to Little Caesars, sat in my favorite seat, and ordered my favorite pizza. Sasha was nowhere to be seen, but I assumed she was in the kitchen. You're eating too much!
Disgusting!
Are you starving?
I heard the other guests whispering something, but I didn't care much. Sasha made those pizzas for me, just me. So of course I would eat all of them. But the taste today was weird and not as good as usual. Especially because I could feel something inside my mouth that no matter how hard I chewed, it wouldn't go away. I tried to swallow it, but it stuck in my throat. Something in the food made me throw up. I heard a woman scream. What the heck?
That's disgusting.
A few more people knocked over their chairs. It seemed that they were very angry. I pulled the thing out of my throat. It was a bunch of hair. I was so scared and confused, I didn't know what to do. That jerk just threw up. So disgusting! A guest spoke up as the staff approached. Everything was so chaotic that I couldn't do anything but rush away. After the incident, I didn't have any courage to go into that place again, but waited for Sasha from the other side of the road. She finally finished her shift. I quietly followed her without making any noise.
I just put a little hair in the pizza and it worked.
Sasha was laughing with someone on the phone.
He probably wouldn't dare to come anymore. What a freak.
I heard all these words and it broke my heart into pieces. How could she do this to me? I didn't believe this. I had to ask her. Sasha, why? Sasha! I immediately rushed towards her.
pervert!
Sasha screamed when I touched her shoulder.
Stay away from me! Leave me alone! Ah!
She screamed too loudly, so I covered her mouth, but she resisted and thrashed violently. Shh! Behave! Behave, my little angel. I pushed my hand tighter and whispered into her ears, but she wouldn't stop panicking. Nothing to be scared of, Sasha. I had to hug her and comfort her. Behave. Sasha was no longer struggling. She behaved now. I hugged her in my arms. Gosh, her hair smelled so good. Her body had the smell of my favorite pizza. I couldn't stop inhaling the scent of her hair and skin. From now on, Sasha would always be by my side and enjoy Little Caesar's pizza with me. No more heartbreak, no more fear. Just you and me. The Mayhem Amusement Park had a scary rumor that the Mayhem roller coaster tracks would take you to a mysterious area where you would be stuck forever. That rumor began to spread after many people went missing while riding the roller coaster. This park had to close after only 2 years of operation and became a deserted place. But that was 10 years ago. This summer, the Mayhem Mountain roller coaster would reopen to guests. As true risk-takers, Chris and Joanna couldn't miss this tour to examine the rumor. After 10 years abandoned, everything here was quite old and dilapidated, and the tracks looked a bit ramshackle. Even though it was reopened, it still looked eerily deserted. Hi. Wanna ride a roller coaster? He had makeup on like a clown with a red nose. He looked so sloppy in that staff uniform.
I'm sure.
Joanna hesitated a bit, even though that was exactly their main purpose when getting there.
Of course, but I have to gather a few more passengers. Can you wait a few minutes? This ride may start later than usual.
How late?
Joanna asked.
About 12 a.m. But don't worry, a roller coaster ride only lasts for 15 minutes.
The clown replied. He seemed very impatient. Joanna looked at Chris, and they both agreed.
All right, just a few minutes waiting.
And then they sat down to wait. But after a while, there were no more guests, and the clown wasn't around.
All right, a little bit less passengers than usual, but enough for today.
The man finally came back. Joanna and Chris looked at each other confused. But the good thing was they didn't have to wait for another day to explore the ride. The clown quickly led them up the stairs and seated them carefully.
Remember to fasten your seatbelt and do not scream,
the clown repeatedly told them.
Don't scream? What a freak,
Chris mumbled. Joanna didn't notice her friend's words because what bothered her more was the clown's weird glance at them, and his hands were scratching each other, harder and harder. Soon after the two people got on the roller coaster, the seatbelts tightened around them stably. Joanna and Chris looked at each other, and before they could say anything, the roller coaster moved. A feeling of euphoria made Joanna shiver. The roller coaster raced at full speed through each rotation, and fortunately, Joanna was able to suppress her screams. As for Chris, he was extremely excited and shouted at the top of his lungs. One round, then 2 and 3. They soon became dizzy. The train still raced like a beast, ripping through the fog. At this point, Joanna began to notice something strange. Joanna tried to open her eyes to see the clown in the control booth, but there was no one there. She panicked, and Chris also noticed this strange thing. He kept screaming in the hope that someone would hear his cry for help. The roller coaster kept running while they became more and more exhausted. Then, all of a sudden, the glider's screws became loose and began to screw backward. Joanna and Chris grabbed all the nails that fell out from the vehicle. The roller coaster kept accelerating as if it would never stop. At that moment, Joanna saw a familiar figure standing below. And as the roller coaster pulled her closer to that side, Joanna realized in horror it was the clown. He was smiling devilishly. His mouth was wide open with those lifeless eye sockets. He was enjoying their suffering. The vehicle began to wobble more than ever, and they could no longer hold it back. It continued to roll over. Chris's screams tore up the still air. The seatbelt popped out. Joanna and Chris almost fell out, but they still managed to hold on the tramp. Chris's whole body was floating in the air. His hand started to slip away, but he still didn't want to cling to Joanna. Joanna couldn't take it anymore. The roller coaster moved to the final station and began to slow to a stop, and she didn't have the strength to do anything else. At this moment, the clown walked up to Joanna. Next to him were 3 fierce dogs. Joanna could clearly see drools running down their sharp teeth.
When I was a kid, I used to love playing games, especially Minecraft. I never knew that one day Minecraft would ruin my entire life. This story happened 10 years ago, when I was only 15. No, it must be him! It must be him! It must be him! My brother is the one who brought Minecraft to my life, and since we were extremely close, he left his PC at home after moving to college. That night, my parents went to visit my grandmother, so I stayed home alone and played Minecraft with my 2 best friends, Kai and Evan. Evan and Kai were inviting me to play survival mode. That's strange. I don't want to play this mode because joining unknown servers holds its own risk. But in the end, I joined them anyway. A few minutes later, Kai sent me the link. I clicked in immediately and was led to a large room with 10 other gamers. Oh, Kai and Evan are here. For some reason, I felt relieved when I saw my friends. The game began, and we spread out in different directions. I started building a shelter while Kai and Devin gathered stones for a furnace. Everyone was doing their gameplay except one player. This guy named his character First Creeper, and he didn't do anything. He just stood like a statue right next to me and just followed me around. When I moved, he moved. When I stopped, he stopped. Who the hell is this? I was feeling irritated, so I asked in the chat box, "Guys, who is the First Creeper? That freak just follows me without doing anything. Must be some pathetic guy, I guess."
I don't give a shit. Just get back to the game.
I didn't know if that guy could read it, but when I went back to the game screen, First Creeper disappeared. We played Minecraft for hours. When the clock struck 12, it was already dark in Minecraft. Evan was nowhere to be seen, and Kai hid in the shelter while I drifted apart to collect wood. 5 minutes passed. I started to run in the direction of the shelter because I was scared of the zombies. I kept running, but strangely enough, I couldn't find the shelter. Am I lost? So I texted in the chat, Kai, Evan, you there? But no one answered, so I texted them again. Did you guys leave me alone? A new message popped up, but instead of Kai or Evan, that first creeper guy replied, You're not alone. I shivered and checked at the game screen immediately, but still found myself standing alone. So I went back to the chat. Only then did I find out that everyone was either dead or out of the game, except for the three of us and this first creeper guy. Kai? Evan? I know you guys are around. Answer me! Still, my friends didn't reply. Don't search for them. It's useless. I've already killed them all. I thought this was a joke because apparently Kai and Devin were still alive. Just right then, I noticed on the chat box to see Kai died, then Evan. See? And now, I just need to kill you, and the game will be over. At this point, I got so frustrated that I couldn't ignore this guy. Then where the hell are you, first creeper? And he said, I'm after you. Believe it or not, his answer gave me goosebumps. My heart rate increased, so I turned back to check. The room was empty. There's no one but my cat lying on the bed licking her fur. I called Kai and Devin but got no answer. I didn't wait to listen to this crazy guy, so I quit the game. Phew, what a freak. I went to bed and called it a day. About an hour later, I was woken up by the buzzing phone. Hello? It was my brother. He almost shouted into the phone. Are you at home? I lazily replied, Yeah, where else can I go at this hour? For some unknown reason, he was silent for a moment. Then he said in a shaky voice, Then why did the alarm go off? There's no sound of the alarm going off. What are you saying? Then he paused as if to reassure me, saying, You need to hide. I just got notified. Someone broke into our house. I was in a complete state of panic. God, is that the first creeper name from earlier? How could he find my address? Did he track my IP? Did he come here to kill me to win the game? At that moment, I could hear heavy footsteps rushing towards the door of my room. I sprung out of bed. In my room, there's nowhere to hide. I frantically dialed 911. I could hear someone pass through the toilet, my parents' room, and stop in front of my door. With no other choice, I grabbed my baseball bat and hid behind the door. Please don't come in. Please don't come in. Please don't come in. I stood there and prayed, but then the door burst open. I held my breath and stood as still as a statue. Whoever he was, he just stood there for a while. Apparently seeing no one, he slowly closed the door. But suddenly, my cat made a sound and pointed her head to where I was hiding. This is it. I can feel the door opening again. And he slowly poked his head inside. Just a little more. A little more. God, his head is so green. It's the first creeper guy in Minecraft. Ah! Like an animal, I grabbed the baseball bat and hit him on the head with all my might. I don't remember how many times I hit him, but I saw that guy fall down. Blood was flowing from his body, splattering everywhere. Huff, ha, huff, ha, ha, I'm the winner. It took me a while to calm down, but God, that guy didn't seem to be the first creeper. He looked more like a person wearing casual clothes, but wearing the mask of the character. I peeled off the mask off the first creeper. Lying in the middle of a pool of blood was an 18-year-old young man, glaring his dead eyes at me. Half his head was almost crushed. Brother? When I was 10, I had a group of close friends. Besides me, there were 3 other kids named Flix, Jack, and Adrian. Remind you, I was a hyperactive child and often played tricks. I remember everything like it was yesterday. On the radio, a mentally ill patient was reported to be hiding in my area, and my parents didn't allow me to play outside. Yet, I was too excited for the upcoming exploration with my friends, so I didn't care. It was a large old house that had been abandoned for a long time. It was fenced with barbed wire, and the large gate was locked. However, there was a small hole in the back wall that was close to the grass, so kids like us could get through. When the group gathered at the place, we crept into the house and started our favorite game, hide and seek. This house is a perfect place to play this game because it's large and has many different rooms. Rock, paper, scissors. Rock, paper, scissors. I was the seeker. I blindfolded and counted while my friends ran away. 98, 99, 100. It didn't take me long to get Felix and Adrian, but it's not the same when it comes to Jack. You're hiding so well today, ain't you? As my patience was running out, I suddenly saw someone's shadow run past. It must be Jack. He knew I was coming, so he ran away to find another place to hide. I quickly followed him. It's so weird, because as soon as I thought I'm about to get him, I lost track of him. He kept disappearing and reappearing in another corner, which made me so tired. I finally gave up. Okay, I give up. Go back and start a new game. Hearing that, Jack stopped, but he just stood still. It didn't take me long to get Felix and Adrian, but it's not the same when it comes to Jack. Then all three had to go around the house together and find him. It wasn't until a while later that Jack came out from the master bedroom. He scratched his head and said, "Sorry, I hid in the closet and fell asleep. It was too warm and dark in there." At that time, I just found out that the closet in the bedroom has a recessed drawer. If you don't pay attention, you won't see it. Don't lie, I gasped. For sure you have just chased me around. But Jack firmly denied. My friends also joined in teasing me, telling me not to scare them. But if the person I'm chasing isn't Jack, then who was it? Since my friends did not believe me, I insisted that they return to the house. I will prove that there's another kid in the house, I thought. So the next night, the group went to that abandoned house again. Today, I am still a seeker. I'm counting. 1, 2, 3, I said aloud. For some reason, the house seemed colder and darker than usual. This time, my voice was echoing through the walls. The footsteps of Jack, Adrian, and Flix gradually faded away and disappeared. 98, 99, 100. I left the living room and started my gameplay. 10 minutes, 15 minutes passed, but strangely, I couldn't find anyone. Is there any chance at all they left the house? I thought irritably. I was about to leave when I saw a familiar shoe at the door of the laundry room. Those are Adrian's shoes. You're hiding so well today, ain't you? As my patience was running out. Adrian, where are you? Get out of here! I'm not kidding! I yelled angrily. As soon as I finished speaking, I saw his arm waving at me in the dark corner of the hallway. I rushed over, but Adrian ran away again, so I lost track of him. I was panting on my hips when I saw another arm waving at me from the top of the stairs. It must be Jack! My whole body went crazy, and Jack also ran away immediately. I just saw him running up the stairs, so I followed him. Unlike my expectations, the second-floor hallway was empty. I was standing sideways when I saw Felix's hand wave at me from the bedroom window in the distance. Out of the bunch, Felix is the slowest, so I'm sure he couldn't run fast if I chased him. I slowly approached, trying not to make a sound. But it suddenly dawned on me that something wasn't right. This window was a bit too tall for Felix. Is he standing on a chair? I pressed my face against the window to peer inside. Suddenly, Felix's head popped out of the doorway, causing me to jump and fall to the ground. But his face was strange. His eyes, blankly terrified, staring at me without blinking. I could hear my heart pounding. Felix? I called. Felix pulled his head and arm out of the window, and then I heard footsteps coming out. Oh my God, that's not Felix. Before my panicked eyes was a child. He has the same size, just like us, but with a wrinkled and yellowed face. His whole body was covered in blood, and he was holding a sharp knife in his hand. He laughed while walking towards me. Oops, you found me. Now it's my turn to seek. Then he grinned at me and started counting. I froze in fear for a few seconds, then immediately got up and ran at full speed. I wanted to get out of this house as quickly as possible, but as soon as I reached the stairs, I began to hear the heavy footsteps chasing me. Suddenly, I remembered the secret closet that Jack had hidden before. I hurried into the bedroom and lay there holding my breath. I could hear the sounds of that monster scurrying everywhere looking for me. Finally, due to fatigue and lack of oxygen, I passed out. I woke up to see myself in the hospital. It turned out that my parents and the police had been looking for us all night, and that they had brought me to the hospital. But my friends weren't that lucky. They couldn't come back. Looks like they were all lured and murdered by the monster. Later on, I learned that he was the mental patient police were looking for. Since he was as short as a child, he got through the hole in the back wall and turned that into his temporary shelter. His favorite thing to do is play hide and seek with children and then kill them. The most terrible thing is, until now, the police still couldn't catch him.
Aggressive and entitled, she pushed the staff away and went straight to the counter.
Hey, what happened to your ears, mashed potato and fried chicken?
That woman said. Ma'am, you're not wearing a mask. We can't give you food, said my colleague Ryan.
What are you saying?
I said I'm hungry and I need food immediately!
She ignored all the things we were trying to say. Suddenly, she climbed onto the counter and yelled at Ryan.
Make me something to eat! Do it!
She threw things around and just stood there screaming at Ryan. That was when I stepped in. Ma'am, please calm down. She turned to me.
I will stab you. Bring the mashed potatoes and chicken over here!
She screamed, then scratched her own face. God, I thought she'd gone crazy. We can't do that because you're not wearing a mask, I tried to explain calmly.
I'll stab you now! Bring the food here!
The woman waved her arms and cursed with a defiant attitude and her terribly scratched face. She ignored all my words and yelled loudly.
Get me that goddamn food!
That woman was so angry that she kicked the menu on the table. You must wear your mask. The angry woman cursed at me with vulgar words and then jumped off the counter.
This restaurant is disgusting! You're disgusting!
Then she stormed out. After the crazy woman left, we all sighed in relief. Though I hadn't gotten myself together yet. This was the first time I'd seen such a Karen in real life. We didn't want that kind of customer ever again. So I just quietly cleaned up everything and went back to work as usual. When my shift ended, I packed up my things and went home. On the road, sometimes I could feel the footsteps behind me, as if someone were following me. But every time I turned around, there was just me and the empty street. So weird. I mumbled and walked faster. I knew someone was following me. Suddenly, I turned around. Sure enough, someone hid as soon as they saw me. I swallowed hard, clenched my fists, determined to find out who they were. So I walked very slowly towards the alley. Karen jumped out of the alley and ran toward me. Fortunately, I caught her hand before she could stab me. Oh my God, she was so strong.
I told you I was hungry. Don't you understand?
The woman growled. She was crazy. Her eyes were bloodshot. Her mouth was drooling as if she wanted to eat me alive. She pushed down the knife. Luckily, I dodged to the side just in time. I pushed her away, but she wouldn't stop. That crazy woman took the javelin towards me and took one bite. I struggled to push her away.
That tastes good.
This woman was a psycho.
Please, calm down.
I held back the pain, trying to convince her.
Go to hell!
But she didn't listen. She clutched the knife and pounced on me.
You!
She shivered, laying on the ground, blood flowing from her stomach.
It was your fault!
I was so scared, and my mind was a mess at that time. I didn't know what to do.
Help me!
She moaned. I was so scared that I left the woman and ran all the way home. All that night I couldn't sleep well. I wished all these things were just a dream. The next morning, the police arrived at my door. Only then did I know that that woman last night was discovered and taken to the emergency room in time so she was not in danger. And even though she stabbed herself in the stomach, I couldn't help but blame myself. God, if only I had served her food at that time.
Hi everyone, it's Faith again. Today I want to show you guys this abandoned McDonald's restaurant. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Let's go!
This McDonald's was located in a small suburb, and it took Faith over an hour to find the way there. But it was worth all her efforts. She felt excited to be the first YouTuber to explore this place and was sure this video would break the record of her channel.
I heard that there was a massacre here, and the victims were McDonald's employees. The killer was never arrested.
Faith emphasized while filming the inside of the restaurant. There were neatly arranged tables and chairs on which many dust layers had thickened over time.
Look!
The old menu and some posters were still there on the board and also covered with dust and mold. Faith went to see the ice cream machines, the soda maker, and fryers. Suddenly, she saw a patch of mold on the floor behind the counter.
The police once found a body here. This place is a mess!
Faith panned the camera around to the kitchen.
I think we should move on.
Faith said to the camera and stepped over the mess on the floor toward the bathroom. As she was walking along the hallway, the flashlight went out. Yikes, she didn't change the battery. Faith stopped to shake the flashlight, hoping to brighten it up a little longer.
Oh, shoot!
Faith was startled, almost dropping the flash. Behind the window was a smiling Ronald Clown statue, whose eyes were wide open and very spooky. The statue looked old and odd.
Look, guys, this clown looks so real.
Realizing nothing so dangerous about this thing, she moved on to the other corners. The next destination was the toilet area, which was told to be where the murderer hid the corpses. Right after she walked to the door, the unpleasant musty smell wafted out. She gulped, hesitating whether to go in. Even though people said it was a rumor, it still frightened Faith.
I'm feeling pretty nervous, guys. Just a rumor anyway.
Faith turned the doorknob. Nothing special here.
Oh, just a regular bathroom.
Faith sighed, yet still wanted to check it. She went around with the camera on, It looked cleaner than the other rooms, and there was no mold, no blood, or sign of murder here.
Guys, the rumor is fake.
Faith left the toilet. This time, Faith focused on the floor she was standing on. There were a lot of stains, some messy piles of things, some dusty paintings and doodles.
God! These are really...
Faith was panic-stricken, then she fell to the ground, dropping the camera. On the ceiling was a dead body hanging. The corpse was wearing a McDonald's uniform. Her hand dangled in the air. Her face with 2 black eye sockets was covered in messy hair. Suddenly, her mouth started to move. Faith was so scared that her whole body froze. The brown liquid trickled down, emitting a foul stench throughout the air. Faith was panic-stricken, then she fell to the ground, dropping the camera. Rumors were true, and this place was really haunted. At this point, she didn't care about the video anymore. She quickly grabbed the camera and ran away from the abandoned restaurant without looking back. Fortunately, during her run, Faith found a police station. She quickly rushed in. When the police arrived, they quickly searched the entire restaurant but did not find the body. But the police continued to investigate based on Faith's video and traces at the scene. Faith offered the police some footage from her camera for investigation. As she watched the tape to the end, Faith shivered when she discovered the most terrible thing. There was no statue of Ronald the Clown in this abandoned McDonald's at all.
Itself in creating a fun, family-friendly environment. Still, every job has its horror stories, and I'm here to bring you one of those about Hooters, about what's behind those pretty faces and hot bodies. Grace was a good friend of mine. We first met at a book club and had hung out since then. She was also a Hooters girl. She was like Marilyn Monroe with the face of an angel. Anyways, that day, Grace asked me to pick her up after work because her car broke down. That was my first visit to Hooters.
Janet, come here. Don't be shy.
Grace told me over the phone.
It's okay. I'll wait here.
Come on, it's going to be a long wait.
Honestly, I couldn't refuse her anymore. I stepped into the restaurant and I was surprised. I thought this was full of male guests, but it turned out they were of all ages and genders, and all the waitresses were so hospitable and nice, and they were so beautiful. One of them took me to the table to wait for Grace, who was now busy taking orders.
Hey, cutie, wanna hang out for a night?
That drunk man over there said to Grace. She seemed annoyed, but still smiled.
When his hand moved down to her waist, she grabbed it and pushed it away.
Damn!
He gave a smack on Grace's cheek. Ah! Hey! I ran over and shoved him.
You bastard!
That man was about to fight back, but a few guests got to stop him.
Are you okay?
I went to help Grace, but she pushed my hand away. Her cheek was still red. Sorry, my friend is new here. It's none of your business. Grace turned back to the man, whispered to him, and winked.
Okay, baby.
The man licked his lips, then followed her.
Grace, stop it. He was trying to harass.
I stopped Grace on the way.
Just stay out of this.
Grace gritted her teeth, then turned to smile at the man and went inside the staff room. Something was wrong. It had been an hour since they went into the room. What if my friend was harmed? I couldn't stay here like this. I must go look for her. While the other girls were busy, I snuck inside. The door wasn't locked, so I went in. It was so quiet here.
Where can she be?
I muttered as I walked around the room. There was nobody there. I looked around and was startled. Laughter seemed to come from behind the wall. I touched the wooden wall. Maybe there was something inside this painting. Suddenly, the wall cracked open. There was a secret door. I went in before it closed. The hallway was quite dark and even quieter than the room. After going through a few turns, I saw an old door without a room or number. Maybe they are here. I pushed the door and went in. Although the light was weak, I could still see things quite clearly, including those I shouldn't have seen.
On the floor, there was a man lying. His whole body was white and pale. His eyes rolled back as if he had been drained of blood. Standing around him were 4 or 5 girls, including Grace. They were... Janet, didn't I tell you to wait? Scared and shocked, my limbs stiffened. I couldn't say a word. As Grace moved closer to me, my heart was about to explode. I used all of my strength to run away. Fortunately, the secret door hadn't closed yet. When I stepped out of that room, everyone looked at me. I didn't know what to say or explain because I was so scared and panicked that I ran out and drove away without daring to look back. I called the police and was horrified to learn that many more bodies had been discovered in that room. But those Hooter girls, including my book club friend Grace, had disappeared. Although I have moved to another city, the experience at Hooters still haunts me. Sometimes, when I'm driving past a Hooters...
In New York, it's difficult. I've searched all the forums and hunted down every street, but still couldn't find a decent place for less than $3,000. Just when I felt my luck was running out, I came across an advertisement that to me was a bargain. The building is located on the edge of the city and not many people pass by it. That apartment is on the ground floor with a bedroom, a kitchen, and a tiny living room. The only thing that I don't like about the apartment is the pile of weird furniture left by the previous owner. The curtains, lanterns, wall decorations, or even the sofa sets all look old and discolored. I once tried to sit on the leather chair, and to be honest, the feeling of it is so strange, cold and slippery. What's worse, they all smell like the disinfectant you could smell at the hospital.
Is the previous owner a creep or something?
When thinking about the workload and money I have to spend on redecorating the apartment. For the first few weeks, I simply put a mattress in the middle of the house to sleep since the moving process cost me a bundle. One day, I was so exhausted that I fell asleep immediately as soon as I laid down on my back. I don't know what time it was, but when I woke up, it was already dawn. My whole body was drenched in sweat. I was so weak that I couldn't feel my own breath. The nightmare was so real. I saw dozens, sometimes even countless dark figures with distorted, disgusting faces surrounding me. They clung to me. I was in a complete state of panic, yet I couldn't make a sound.
What the heck was that?
I thought it was all just a dream, but deep down, I know it's more than that. Whenever I lie down and am about to sleep, that dream comes back and haunts my night. The only way to get rid of it is keeping myself awake all the time. After 1 week, I felt like I had sleep paralysis. Sometimes, I see a disfigured woman in a white dress, always standing at the end of my bed. She kept squealing shrill screams and scratching herself. Sharp black fingernails continued to expose the flesh, and drops of blood dropped to the floor. The drops of blood are not the usual red color, but they are black and have a foul odor. Still, sweat broke out my body, but I couldn't move. Then, I noticed the woman pointing to the corner of the house, then repeated the action a few times before disappearing. What? There's nothing wrong with that house. The contract is clear. No rent refunds. After that, the owner hung up on the phone. So that's it. I can't get out of here soon. I decided to pour the rest of my money to eliminate the creepy vibe of this apartment. Room makeover is such a hard task. I had to move furniture all the way to the center, remove curtains, strip floors, and repaint walls, and so on. One evening, after peeling off the bedroom carpet, I discovered a broken piece of wood on the floor. So I carefully removed them, and I saw a small notebook with different names and dates. That looked so old and dirty. Curiosity got the best of me. I Google one of those names, and the results bring goosebumps to all over my body. A bunch of old news articles about a missing person popped up. The name and date of the disappearance of that person and all others perfectly match what's written in the notebook.
Oh my god, what is it?
I trembled with fear. Could it be? Could it be? The previous owner killed all of these people? I rushed out of that damn apartment and headed to the nearest police station I could find. The police then told me what I found might be the clue connecting the mysterious disappearances together. So they sent out the crime scene team. I was only allowed to stand outside the door when they investigated the house. Suddenly, I overheard one text saying,
"Yup, it's human." Human? What's human?
And here's what I got.
"Sir, have you thrown any furniture in this apartment? We need to collect all of them."
When my brain processed the information, he continued,
"The curtains, lanterns, and everything here are made of human skin. All were probably peeled off from the missing..."
I could feel nothing but blind terror. Could it be all those dark figures with terrible shapes were the missing people the police said? Could it be that girl in the white dress scares me every night was one of them? No, 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 no.
Had been always struggling with a list of mental illnesses, but of course I wouldn't blame her, after all she'd done for me. The first year after we got married, our life was like a dream. However, Haley changed when she found out she couldn't have children. She often had trouble sleeping and had to take medicine, yet her condition only got worse, and strange things constantly happened in our house after that. Once, after having the sweet night together, I cuddled Haley to sleep. I don't know how long it had passed. I was woken up by an uncomfortable feeling around my chest. When I opened my eyes, it was pitch black. That's when I realized my face was covered by the pillow, and the one who was pressing the pillow down my face was none other than Haley. It seemed like she wanted to take my life. As the oxygen level gradually ran out, my whole chest tightened and pain invaded my body. I didn't get why my wife was so strong then. I screamed and yanked until I was finally able to get out. "What the heck, Haley?" She kept her gaze in and wandered back to her bedroom. The scary thing is that after such incidents, Haley did not remember anything. The next morning, when I told her to change doctors, Haley insisted it was all because the house was haunted. The demons in the house kept commanding her to harm me, and when she disobeyed, they would take over her body. We decided to move to the suburbs. Haley could no longer hear the voice in her head. She was happy and so was I. At the end of October, I had to work away from home for a week, although Haley was still taking her regular medication. I still wanted her to invite her friends to come over. However, my wife refused. Don't worry, the old Haley was dead. I had to give up and start my business trip. On the 5th day of my business trip, I called to find Haley much worse than usual. I tried to ask, but Haley said, "I'm just tired." The next day and the day after that, I called again, but Haley didn't answer. I called an early flight to make sure she's okay. I arrived in the living room at 11 o'clock at night. Haley was not in the living room. I called everywhere but got no answer. She must be asleep, I thought, as I headed for the stairs. Oh God, my poor wife. To my horror, I found my wife's body hanging from the banister. Under was a note saying, "I'm sorry, but the voice doesn't stop. I have to stop it myself before I hurt you again." I was about to help her down when I realized it was too late. Her neck had been hanging for so long that it stretched a few inches. You probably already know what happened after that. I called 911. It's been a year since Haley died. This might be the right time for my lover, Daniel to move in. Fake fertility results, swapping sleeping pills, installing a remote control sound system in my home, and a good story that took a lot of work to come up with. All of it worked perfectly, and nobody even doubted. It's all worth it though, as now I can live a long life with the love of my life. Passed away when I was a child. As a teen, I used to stay up way past midnight every night, watching terrifying videos on YouTube. My mom had always emphasized the importance of sleeping well to me and would definitely disapprove of my late-night routine. So I knew that if she caught me at that time, I'd be in big trouble. When I was 16 years old, my peaceful town was in turmoil as some children were suddenly disappearing. But you know, in the countryside, it's normal for kids like us to run away from home for a few days. Facing this news, my mum even grew more and more paranoid. Every night, I'd hear one of them wandering into my room, checking on me. And every night, she always checked on my brother, Daniel, first, and then came to my room. Even though she tried to walk softly, I could hear her footsteps. I'd immediately turn off my light and pretend to be asleep. I heard the door open, and my mother's tiptoe stepped into the room. I wondered if she knew I wasn't sleeping, because often it was only after what seemed like hours before they'd finally leave. The 16-year-old me felt my privacy was violated. However, I didn't dare cough a word because that only confirmed her suspicions. It was Saturday night. My mom got the news that my grandmother had been sent to the emergency room, so she had to leave home that night. Before heading off, she gave me a stern word reminding me to lock the doors and take good care of Daniel, who was so scared of ghosts at that time. She told me she'd be watching through the security cameras to make sure I'd follow that properly. To be honest, I was quite glad that I had the whole evening to watch horror movies. My mother had just left, so I called my friend to bring me the movie, Silence of the Lambs, to watch. A few minutes later, my friend arrived, holding the DVD in hand. I was extremely excited and hurriedly turned on the TV to watch. Meanwhile, my brother Daniel sat next to me coloring. Now it's 10 o'clock. I urged Daniel to go to bed. It took me half an hour to settle him down. I gently closed the door and went to the living room to finish the movie. I couldn't have my mom knowing that I was staying up late, so I did something naive and ignorant, something I'll always regret. I turned off the security cameras. For the next 2 hours, my eyes never strayed from the screen. It was late at night, and the movie gave me goosebumps. Sometimes I feel like someone is standing behind me, but I know it's all made up in my head. Around 12 o'clock, I suddenly heard the door creak from Daniel's room. Maybe my brother got up to drink water. For a while, still not leaving the screen, I called out, "Daniel, are you not asleep yet?" No one answered. Feeling strange, I went to Daniel's room to check. The door was still closing. "Daniel?" I whispered. He didn't reply, but I could see him under the cover. I went back to the living room to finish watching the movie. It was about to reach the climax of the movie when suddenly I felt a strong wind blowing from nowhere. I glanced quickly toward the corner of the room. The main door was unlocked. The strong wind blew it open. Oh my God! This is bad! This is so bad! Could it be? Having a bad feeling, I grabbed the baseball bat and crept up to Daniel's bedroom. "Daniel, are you asleep?" Usually this noise would have woken him up. I knew something was wrong. I turned the blanket over to check. What? Lying in the blanket was not Daniel, but a strange man I had never seen before. He was pale, and his eyes were bloodshot and had huge gaping fangs under them. While I was still motionless in fear, he grabbed my hand and squeezed it. Shocked and panicked, I smacked him on his disgusting face with my baseball bat. I hit him so hard that blood splattered my face, and eventually he had to let go of me. I rushed to my bedroom, locked the door, and called the police. I was so worried about Daniel. I hadn't seen him ever since. Had he been kidnapped? No, I don't want to think about it. My poor Daniel. A few minutes later, the police arrived and my mother was home shortly after. The stranger was nowhere to be found. All they found were bloodstains on the bed and Daniel, my dear brother, shivering in the closet. He must have been like me, pretending to be asleep and hiding in the closet as soon as he heard a strange noise at the door. And since I turned off the camera, the police never found him. A few months later, when things had calmed down, I joked with my mother, "I see why you're so worried that you have to check my room every night." My mother looked at me with concern. "What do you mean? I never checked your room after you slept." It's a dreary winter day. I stand in front of my treasure, the Harry Potter collection, while sipping a cup of coffee. This familiar scene reminds me of what happened 10 years ago, when I was just a 10-year-old kid, being a boy who loved to explore things. My best friend at the time was Ronan. Being a die-hard Harry Potter fan, I just called him Ron. And since we're so close, I considered myself Harry as well. Interesting, right? Ron and I loved going to the train station after school. Back then, I always believed that the barrier between platforms 9 and 10 holds the secret entrance to the magical platform 9 3/4, which of course could lead us to Hogwarts. There was a man who often sat at the corner of the railway platform, wearing a cape, like a witch's costume. One afternoon, I noticed a young boy approach the old man with a wand in his hand. "Hey Ron, do you think he's an employee of platform 9 3/4? "No idea." Ron's dusty answer disappointed me. I stopped talking to him, turned to see the empty corner. The old man and the boy with the wand were no longer there. "Oh no, I lost track of them." I came to the railway platform, but still, I found nothing. "It's dinner time. We need to go home." After that day, Ron and I were stuck in the house for a whole week due to the heavy snowfall. As soon as the weather improved, I picked up the phone and called his house. "Hey, come over. We're gonna go to the station. Don't forget your wand." By the time we got there, it was already dark. Only a few people were passing by. We stood in a familiar place, tried to find the employee of platform 9 3/4, but that day, he didn't sit in his familiar corner. Ron stared at me in the confusion, so I had to reassure him. "If you want to be a witch, you have to trust me. The other day, I saw that man took a boy to Hogwarts. That boy has a wand, just like us." Then, Ron and I approached the place where the man usually sat, but it just made us more disappointed. Suddenly, a strong gust of wind blew up from nowhere. It brought goosebumps to the back of my neck. "Bruh, is that Azkaban Dementor or something?" "I don't know, but let's go home. It's getting dark." I ignored Ron's words and tried to linger. A few minutes passed. From the darkness suddenly appeared a shadow, a thin and tall body. Oh my god, it's definitely Azkaban Dementor. In the distance, he was dark and threatening. A few seconds later, the shadow approached us and began to show its face. Underneath the cape, I saw ragged clothes. His face was terrifying and gave me nightmares for years. And in his hand was not a magic wand, a bloody knife. He smiled sinisterly, revealing jagged yellow teeth. "Run!" Ron yelled. "No, I spent my whole life preparing for this." And then loudly chant the incantation, "Expecto Patronum." Yet nothing happened. The man almost caught me. While my legs were wobbly with fear, Ron grabbed my hand and We ran as fast as we could. Idiot. You want to die? Run! Just then, I tripped and got my feet stuck in the railway tracks. The madman was still standing over there and laughing. Oh my God, that's it. Am I going to die like this? My fear spiked. I frantically waved my wand to hope for a miracle. The train was already very close that could hit me in any seconds. When I'm about to pass down, Ron ran down and managed to free my leg. He made it out before the train cut through and left the madman, who was still laughing, wildly behind. That night, when Ron took me home, my dad got really mad. He thought I sneaked to the train station without asking his permission. Turns out his concerns are well grounded. During that week, the news had spread about the disappearance of boys my age. In the most recent case, the boy's mother said that after she lost her son while refueling at a gas station near the railway, and the common thing between the boy and the other victims is that they are all Harry Potter fans.
Vanessa took a deep breath. The last time she was in this class, the students, including one named Nick, pranked her with snakes and scorpions to expel her from the class. Even so, the principal didn't agree to change class for her, for the reason that the homeroom teacher hadn't returned to work. The kids started to gossip right after she stepped in, like they weren't expecting that this substitute teacher would return. Vanessa put her bag on the table, tried to act like it was nothing, and started her lecture. The kids seemed to be scared after getting a warning from the principal. They didn't chit-chat in the class or make fun of Vanessa anymore. During her lecture, Vanessa didn't notice the staring eyes and mischievous smile from the kid named Nick. Nick's evil smile showed up when he saw the stone hit the window. The sound from the window got Vanessa's attention. She went to open the window and look down, but she saw no one. At that moment, Nick suddenly appeared right behind her.
Miss Van?
Said Nick. Vanessa looked at Nick warily, with her back facing the window.
I'm really sorry for the prank. I didn't mean to scare you at all. Here's a gift for you.
Nick handed the beautifully wrapped bow tie gift, smiling sincerely. Vanessa was very surprised. She hesitated. This naughty boy really meant it. So she took the gift.
Open it up,
Nick urged. Vanessa didn't want to disappoint her student, so she unwrapped the gift. A black snake came out, terrifying Vanessa to death. She stepped back, unsteadily reaching out for Nick. He almost gave his hand to her, but then it pulled back. And so Vanessa fell out the window. The loud sound startled everyone who heard it. The whole class was shocked and rushed out to the window. Vanessa lay on the cement floor. Red blood quickly spread to an area. Her mouth moved and her body twitched slightly. Before passing out, she saw Nick by the window still looking at her and said,
Gotcha.
Vanessa was taken to the hospital. In front of the school board, Nick insisted that Vanessa fell on her own. Besides, no proof of Nick pushing the substitute teacher was found, so he easily got away with his prank. Even so, he deserved an adequate punishment for it. A month later, Vanessa hadn't returned, and all the students believed that she was so scared that she gave up her job. At this time, the class had been over, and Nick had to stay to do the cleanup. He carried a bucket and a mop in one hand, whistling a melody. The sound echoed in the hallway, causing Nick to stop whistling. He looked around but saw nothing but an empty hallway. The lights suddenly flickered. Nick's eyes were wide open, for he saw something at the end of the hallway. It was a person with a high heel on one foot, bare foot on the other, wearing blood-stained white clothes. The person's head was down with loose and long hair.
That person had the same outfit as Vanessa. The light turned off and on again. That person disappeared. Nick rubbed his eyes frantically, but still, he only saw an empty hallway.
It's impossible. She's still in the hospital.
Nick confronted himself as he kept walking. Laughter echoed through the air, startling Nick. He immediately turned around. At the end of the hallway, there was Vanessa's ghost. This time, Nick could see her face clearly, blood pouring from her eyes and mouth, falling onto her skirt, staining her white shirt. Nick got panicked. Vanessa had come back for his life. Nick quickly ran out of the hallway. He was truly scared. The footsteps still echoing panicked Nick even more. He ran down the stairs but bumped into the ghost and tripped several times in fear. Nick ran up the stairs to the exit, gasping for breath. When he raised his head, Vanessa's bloody face appeared in front of his face.
Boo!
No! No! Oh! Nick screamed. He jerked backward and then slipped. He fell upside down the stairs. His arms and legs are bent terribly, blood pouring from his nose and mouth. With excruciating pain, blood quickly splattered on the floor. The person was approaching Nick. He couldn't move his arms or any other part and could only stare blankly at Vanessa approaching. Vanessa wiping the blood from her mouth, coldly looking at Nick lying on the floor.
Gotcha,
she said. Then she stepped over Nick's body, leaving him lying in his own blood. Angrily, she slammed the glass of water on the table and broke it. Small pieces of glass were strewn over the table. All the guests were startled. Ivy worriedly ran over.
What's wrong, madam? What's wrong? Look at this!
Ruby raised the bunch of human hair close to Ivy's face, growling.
There's hair in my burger!
Other customers started whispering.
Sorry, madam, but there seems to be a mistake here.
Ivy hastily explained.
What do you mean by mistake?
Ruby opened her eyes widely. Ivy explained that the food here was prepared and served in hygienic conditions. Plus, the staff working in the kitchen had short hair, so there was no chance a hair could get in.
You mean I made it up by myself?
No, madam, I didn't.
You rat! How dare you? Where's the manager? Let me talk to the manager!
Ruby immediately grabbed Ivy's shirt and yelled at her like she would eat Ivy alive. But that wasn't enough. She pressed Ivy's head against the table full of sharp, broken glass. Ivy trembled to resist when her face was only inches away from it. She didn't expect that the first day of work would be so...
I want to speak to your manager!
Ruby continued to yell. At this moment, Danny, the store manager, appeared.
My apology for our new employee. She might be a bit short of experience. How can I help you?
Are you the manager?
Ruby looked scornfully at the thin man in front of her.
She slandered me. You gotta do something. Do something!
She finally loosened her hands on Ivy. Ivy was too scared to move, so she fell to the ground. Danny, with a polite smile, offered Ruby compensation. Not only another burger meal, but a takeaway combo of double cheeseburgers. But Ruby wasn't satisfied. She wanted Ivy to apologize to her in front of everyone. And Ivy did, in a patient way. Ruby sat down arrogantly.
It looks like you're lucky today.
Ivy, you can go inside and prepare the meal,
Danny said. After a while, Ivy brought out the food to Ruby. Ruby sneered and rudely snatched it. She sniffed the smell of food coming out of the bag and then quickly left the restaurant, just the way she did after cheating in other restaurants.
Ivy stood there and watched the woman driving away, still shaking.
Hey, take it easy. We meet a lot of people like that.
A co-worker passed by and patted her on the shoulder. The mean Ruby was driving down the street, hitting the horn repeatedly. As her car pulled onto the freeway, she started eating the burger. She chewed hard as if she had been starving for a long time, not even bothering about the taste. One bite, then two, and three. She soon finished half of the burger. The pain came slowly. As soon as she realized something was wrong, she spat out the food. It turned out a lot of blood. Her eyes widened in shock as blood ran down her neck and clothes. At this moment, Ruby realized that there was a small piece of glass in her mouth. A stomach ache also started to hit her hard. She felt her throat burning and her stomach twisting with pain. Ruby quickly lost control. The car lurched and crashed into the roadside bar. It exploded shortly after. The incident was reported very soon.
That's Karen's car.
The co-worker in McDonald's panicked when she recognized the car and its owner, but then thought that it was fair.
She deserves it.
Ivy gave a forced smile, her eyes slowly moving to the trash.
And Nick met each other at the Camping Lovers Club. Since then, they have always been together. At the end of October 2021, the couple went camping together in a remote and out-of-the-way area to celebrate Jack's new RV.
Are you sure you know the road?
It's been 3 days on the road, but Lucy and Jack haven't arrived at the destination yet. The place is deep in the woods and was barely discovered, so it's quite hard to find the path. Yeah, Jack said in a certain voice. According to his plan, they would be there in 30 minutes. The luxuriant trees spread out almost to the middle of the lane. It's so dark that it's even harder for Jack to see. Suddenly, both Jack, Lucy, and their belongings go crazy. They've just crashed something very big. Jack quickly pushes the brake. The wheels slip a long way.
What the hell was that?
Lucy screams, while Jack sweated with fear. It looks like a human body. Lucy freezes when she hears from Jack. After a while, they decide to take the flashlight to check.
Oh, shoot.
It seems like Jack was right. Under the wheels, they find a long bloodstain. Jack and Lucy follow that bloodstain. 1 meter, then 2 meters. Their hearts bounce faster as they step closer. It's so close now. I think it's alive, Jack said. At that moment, the body suddenly jumps and scares the couple startled. Lucy heaves a sigh of relief when she finds that the body is a deer, and so does Jack. For a moment, he has thought he would go to jail.
Wait, this deer looks so strange.
Lucy sits down to see the deer better. It seems to be heavily injured before the accident. Its body is covered with blood, and the guts are coming out. The accident can't do that to a deer. But Jack doesn't care. He hastily says, "Let's get back to the van. I can feel that we are almost there." Lucy listens to Jack, gets back to the van, and they start the van. After moving for a while, they suddenly see a strange man who is asking for a ride. Jack slows down the vehicle so that Lucy can see the man more clearly. Gosh, his face is so disgusting. His clothes are like filthy rags. He doesn't even wear slippers. Lucy doesn't feel so well, so she shouts,
"Go, go, go!"
Finally, Jack doesn't stop the vehicle, as if they just keep driving. "Here it is! I told ya!" Lucy is so happy because they finally arrive. The raw and primitive scene is exactly what they expected, Because she wants to save fuel for the trailer, Lucy suggests finding some wood for a campfire. Then they split. On her way, Lucy finds a tattered tent. Sometimes she finds some pieces of dead animals, but she only thinks that it's normal when wild animals can be around here. Soon, she comes back with wood in her hand.
Why is Jack taking so long? That's strange.
Lucy thinks. It's been a while, but Jack hasn't come back, so Lucy decides to rest on the trailer while waiting for Jack. But soon comes the sleepiness. Lucy quickly falls asleep. Lucy has no idea how long she has slept, but suddenly in her dream, she hears someone mumbling and rummaging in the trailer.
Jack, you're back?
Uh-huh. Lucy hears Jack's answers, so she keeps on sleeping. But then, suddenly, after a while, she smells a stench. More wondrously, her face turns itchy and wet. Lucy slowly opens her eyes. What is in front of her eyes is freaking her out. A few centimeters away from her face is a disgusting face. His eyes are glazing over as he's staring at her. His mouth is red and his drool splatters. At this moment, Lucy realizes the itchy and wet feelings on her face were from his licking. Lucy panics. She pushes the man and runs to the door. Lucy runs into the woods. In the dark, she hears the man's steps as he is right behind. Lucy keeps running and running. Suddenly, she trips over something that makes her fall down. Lucy looks around and finds her surroundings sticky, slimy, sloppy. When her eyes get used to the dark, she dazes.
Jack, are you okay?
But Jack doesn't move.
Jack?
Lucy looks down. Jack's guts are all out, like he has been ripped off. Lucy is so shocked that she doesn't even realize the psycho has been behind her.
Join your friend.
When she is hopeless, Lucy remembers the knife hanging on the side when she was picking the wood. So, as quickly as lightning, gets the knife and waves it around.
Get off before I call the police!
She seems to hurt the psycho because after that she hears him scream in pain. Then, all of a sudden, Lucy rushes to the RV, locks the door, and drives away. The RV runs on the road, quickly leaving the freaky area behind. Lucy's hands are shaking and her heart is pounding. Her head is full of questions. Who is that psycho? Why did he kill Jack? And at that moment, for no reason, Lucy recalls whispering in her dream. But this time, the sound is clearer than before. Slow down, slow down, slow down. Subconsciously, Lucy steps on the brakes, but the vehicle goes even faster. That's when she realizes that she has lost control. The trailer car kept running in her desperation.
An overnight fire claims one life in Escambia County. According to police, crews were called out to the crime scene just before 1 a.m. The cause of the fire is still under investigation. The victim has not yet been identified.
I'm done. Sorry for being late. Before I finished speaking, I suddenly saw a familiar and strange figure. My God, it's Mike. How did he wake up without me knowing? Mike, the guy in a wheelchair, fidgets with the ball and is about to perform a three-pointer shot from the middle of the field. With that posture, I doubted him, but still didn't want to distract Mike, so I gently sat down to watch. Mike gently raised his hand and made a powerful throw. That's a great throw. Just by then, the ball went straight into the basket like everything was programmed. It fell to the ground, but the resounding sound was a bit off, strange and creepy. I don't know why, but the ball doesn't bounce like a regular basketball anymore. Now that I noticed it, it was a human head. A bald head. God, that's the coach's head. I can't believe what's happening in front of my eyes. Mike, my best friend, murdered the coach? Terror stabbed my heart. I couldn't move even a single finger. Mike seemed to sense my presence ever since because I heard him saying, "Kyle, what about you? Why are you hiding the fact that you're the coach's son?" It can't be. Why does he know that secret? We never said a word about it. How could he know, he said. My naive Kyle. I was not in a coma the whole time. You didn't know that, did you? Just then, I remember sitting next to Mike's bed, talking on the phone with my dad, who's also my coach. Yeah, it worked. He hasn't woken up yet. But, Dad, I didn't know you wanted to take his legs just for this.
The tragic death of Mary Martin, a 17-year-old girl, had caused a media stir. The murderer has yet to be identified. Police are continuing their investigation into...
Max turned off the TV and wiped off the tears on his cheeks. His limbs were still shaking. It was an email from Dr. Finn, which included the address of his clinic. Dr. Finn was his last hope of treating his severe insomnia. Max quickly changed his clothes and headed to the clinic. The clinic was located in a rather old residential area, which was difficult for Max to find. There was no signboard outside, which made him a little suspicious if this was a legal clinic. But it took him a long way here, so he didn't want to go home empty-handed. With the tired appearance of someone who had not slept for a long time, he knocked on the door. Dr. Finn was wearing a stained blouse, emaciated, and his voice was muffled. He invited Max to sit down on the worn sofa, then started to ask about his condition. Max said that he had insomnia and always felt very tired. Finn nodded his head, then handed Max a bottle of pills.
This is the cure.
Max looked at the white bottle without a label. He frowned slightly and his face was filled with skepticism.
Don't worry. I've cured a lot of people.
Finn nodded as he pointed to a photo on the wall in which he stood in the middle. To persuade Max, Finn gave him a 20% discount and one more bottle as a bonus. Max finally agreed to buy the medicine from Finn, then rushed home. That night, Max had a good night of sleep. It had been a long time since he had slept so well. The first week passed well. One night, while Max was sleeping soundly in bed, his whole body felt suddenly so heavy. When he opened his eyes, he saw a black shadow hovering under the ceiling. Max couldn't move, as if his whole body were pressed down by hundreds of tons. That strange shadow suddenly rushed towards him. It was close enough that Max could clearly see its eyes, and its mouth was slightly white. And it was trying to merge with his body. In a second, the shadow got closer and closer. Its legs merged with his legs, then hands. Max kept struggling in horror, but nothing could help him out. The shadow's mouth opened, and there came a high-pitched scream. Startled out of his sleep, he tried to control his breathing, sweat already drenching his body. His limbs were finally able to move again. He must get away from this horrible darkness, but had no strength left.
Police are revealing more clues around the murder of Mary Martin. They are currently locating the suspect and increasing monitoring around the...
Max turned off the TV. Max was exhausted. He looked pale and visibly thinner. His eyes were sunken from lack of sleep, and his hair was messy. but he couldn't reach Dr. Finn. Max had been texting Finn about his situation since last night, but the doctor hadn't responded, and he hadn't picked up the phone either. Looking helplessly at the white bottle on the table, Max's mind went blank. He really needed that medicine. He would die without using it. The next night, he had sleep paralysis again. This time it was even much worse than before. Max heard wheezing in his ears. He even felt liquid drip from the Shadow's mouth onto his face. After struggling to regain consciousness, Max took more medicine. While he was drifting off to sleep, he felt his whole body stiffen again. This time, he clearly saw the Shadow shaped like a girl wearing a dirty dress. Her neck cut off and throat exposed. Max knew who she was. Mary! 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 Max repeated the name in panic. Mary's ghost moved closer, squeezing Max's neck.
Give my life back!
Mary's shrill scream rang out. Her mouth opened wide, from which it spewed a slimy mass of fluid and maggots that fell directly into Max's face. Max woke up to find his whole body sweating. He immediately grabbed the medicine bottle from the desk drawer, poured the pills all into his mouth, and frantically drank water to digest them. Soon the bottle went empty. After swallowing all the pills, Max gasped heavily. Suddenly, he felt something wrong. His eyes rolled back. A painful feeling spread through his body, causing him to spasm his muscles. He clutched his throat and felt a hot flash burning his intestines. Max writhed in agony on the cold floor, struggling with a foaming mouth, his breathing even more difficult. After a while, Max stopped moving. He lay curled up, motionless on the floor, with wide white eyes.
A man has been found dead in his own apartment. Remarkably, this man is the boyfriend of the poor Mary Martin and is also the prime suspect in the murder. According to the police, he was paranoid after
easily became overloaded with the work here. It was probably due to the high pressure at the workplace that people barely talked. After a while, I only knew and talked with two more colleagues, Emmy and Joe. Emmy was my supervisor, and Joe was Emmy's manager.
Jesus. Try to finish this mess. I couldn't contact Joe for a few days. Maybe he died somewhere.
Emmy angrily threw the documents on my table and left. It was already 8 o'clock. She must have been exhausted from taking over all the work since Joe didn't show up. Luckily, our boss was so understanding and kind. Every day around 10 p.m., he usually gave us some brain-boosting water. To me, it was like an elixir. I always felt so awake and refreshed every time I drank it. Since then, it had become my new beverage, despite one side effect. I often lost sleep in the next few days. That day, as usual, I stayed at the company quite late with a bunch of documents. I went outside for a cigarette. While standing next to the exit door, I suddenly heard some strange echoing noises from downstairs. I worked on the 20th floor of the building, and there was barely anyone who came here at this hour. But that sound still stirred up the air. It sounded like someone jumping up and down the stairs. Then came the giggles, so monstrous in the still air. So strange. What's wrong with the janitor? I returned to my desk. Emmy had been off for 3 days already for unknown reasons. It also meant all of her work now fell on me. It was 9 p.m. I breathed a sigh of relief after the work was done. I packed up my things to go home. I hated the elevator here. It never reached our floor since the 20th floor button was broken. So I had to walk downstairs to use the elevator. Suddenly, I heard the same strange noise again. the clattering footsteps on the stairs, and the giggles. But it was louder this time, and coming from upstairs, I called out, "Who is it?" The noise stopped for a few seconds, but then it got faster and louder. I saw a figure appear on the dark stairs. It looked like a woman with loose hair covering most of her face. I approached her and asked, "Hello? What's the matter?" As soon as I finished the sentence, the woman slowly raised her head, revealing a wild face. Her eyes were bloodshot, like she hadn't slept in a week. Oh my God! That was Emmy! She was tightly holding a large stapler in her hand, which was covered in a red liquid that smelled like blood. While I was still frozen with fear, she burst out laughing like crazy and rushed toward me. I thought she would jump on me, but no, she kept jumping on the stairs, then burst out laughing again. I was so scared and quickly ran away. After getting in the car, my heart was still pounding wildly in my chest. I saw a crowd gathering in front of the building, but I was too panicked to care. That whole night I couldn't sleep. Even until my alarm went off at 7 a.m., I still couldn't close my eyes for a while.
If everything keeps going like this, I might go crazy one day.
But I loved this job and wanted to follow it to the end. Emmy still didn't go to work today. Maybe she just gave up like Joe.
A few years ago, I was traveling alone in a little-known place in Texas. I had planned to stay there for 1 week. However, the blizzard brought traffic to a halt, so I ended up being there for almost a month. As a fitness lover, the first place I went to check was the gym. The town was sparse, so it's surprising that there were always only a few people at the gym. I especially loved going to the gym late at night. There was hardly anyone there, so the whole gym seemed to be mine. It was the only gym I could find in that area, so I had to go there even though I found it a bit inconvenient. For example, the manager was always silent. The gym facility was old and gave off an unpleasant atmosphere. It felt like everything was covered with the smell of sweat and no one ever cleaned it up. However, the boxing bags here are of extremely good quality. They were soft, and the level of elasticity was insane. One quiet night, and the gym was empty. I put on my headphones and ran on the treadmill. At some point, I saw a black shadow reflected in the mirror. Every time I turned around, but I saw no one. I thought it was on my head, or else it might be the manager. I kept running for another 15 minutes, but those black figures didn't leave me alone. I felt like I was watched by dozens of eyes. Although I sweated like crazy, my body felt cold. Since I'm a wimp, I've decided to switch the gym time from evening to daytime for the rest of my stay here. On the last day before I left, I went to the gym for the last time. From afar, I noticed crowds of people. The entrance was blocked by a lot of police cars and ambulances. Curious, I asked a policeman standing nearby. He told me not to stay away because it was a crime scene. When I heard this, I was shocked because yesterday when I came to work out, everything was normal. Of course, I inquired further, but received no further information. At that moment, I saw the police escorting the gym manager out. He remained silent, exuding of terrifying and creepy mystery. After that, all the punching bags that I loved to use were carried out one by the staff wearing protective gear. All were cut open. What the hell is going on? I raised my legs and peered inside. If I could go back to that moment, I'd want to slap myself in the face for being nosy. I wish I had never seen that. Inside the sandbags was the human body with flesh and blood rotting. Witnessing that terrible scene, I couldn't help but throw up. As soon as I regained my consciousness, I went back to the motel, packed my things, and left that damn place. Later on, I learned the truth through watching the news. Before I came to that city, many people suddenly disappeared for no apparent reason. The owner of the motel was afraid of losing guests, so he absolutely did not say a word to me. My heart turns uneasy every time I think about it. Perhaps that sandbag was so qualified not because it was expensive, but because the sand was replaced by human bodies. And perhaps the strong smell that made me queasy was not sweat, but a smell of fluid from rotten humans.
Can even bring danger to a whole plane. Well, I witnessed that once, and I don't want that nightmare to happen a second time. It was a summer day in June. After a year of hard work, I decided to treat myself to a trip to Hawaii. Traveling alone was something so fun, especially when you're an introvert. I checked in just in time to board the plane. When finding my seat, I was annoyed to see someone sitting there already. Some minutes later, the flight attendant approached and asked me to settle down, so I had to walk over to my seat.
Excuse me? I think this is my seat. But I don't like to sit near the window, so I prefer this one. But the seat is on the ticket. I don't think we can change, but I don't want to change it. Any problems?
Because of her loud voice, everyone turned back and looked at me. I was so embarrassed that I forced myself to sit near the window. After the plane took off, that woman took off the mask, while the flight attendant asked everyone to wear masks during the flight.
Hey, why did you take off the mask?
She glared at me with red eyes.
What's the matter? Why are you so nosy? Never mind.
But then I decided to report this.
Can I go to the bathroom for a bit?
The woman reluctantly said.
What a disturbing thing.
I moved out and went across the restroom to the cabin. I wanted to inform the flight attendant about the woman's behavior. That made me very uncomfortable. After listening to my report, the flight attendant went to talk to her. But you think that was all? Not so easy. The Karen yelled.
I just took off my mask for a snack. Is there any need to be so strict?
Then glared at me. The flight attendant turned to me.
Is that true?
I hesitated for a moment, then shook my head slightly. The flight attendant looked at the woman.
Would you mind putting the mask back on now? But is it a big deal? I only took off my mask for 1 minute. Why are you so unreasonable? But it's the rules, so I ask you to strictly follow it. Do you want me to die? With the mask on, how can I breathe properly? I'll sue you! Madam, I ask you to sit down and stay calm, and then put on your mask.
The woman suddenly grabbed the flight attendant by the collar.
I don't like masks! Can you understand it?
I stood up and tried to stop her, but to no avail. The woman then pushed the flight attendant aside.
What would you do to me?
The other people seemed so panicked. The woman got her face close to the attendant. She seemed so mad. Then she suddenly turned around and pointed at me.
You're the one who did this!
She rushed over to me and picked me up by the neck. I was so scared, I could hardly breathe. My whole body was drained of strength.
It's you!
The woman then pushed me down on the seat and took my mask off. Fortunately, at that moment, the flight attendant appeared in time and tied her up with duct tape. With the help of another flight attendant, they tied the woman to the chair and dragged me out. My whole body was shaking, my heart was still beating fast, and I felt short of breath even though the flight attendant kept reassuring me. After the plane landed, the police quickly showed up. The woman kept screaming at them and ended up being handcuffed off the plane. Well, it was the scariest flight of my life, and now every time I see someone like that woman, I get chills. I wish you a happy traveling season, and to never get into the same situation as I did.
You to be my Valentine. I remember the look in your face, the happiness and excitement of the day we spent together, drained from your face like water running down a plug hole. You said no.
Heather, but you haven't thought about it, right?
But you were so sure.
I said no. I don't want to be your Valentine. To me, our relationship is just friends with benefits. Nothing more.
My love is burning for you. But just like that, you walked away into the crowd of lovers. I love you. I love you so much. Is it not enough for you? That night, after you left, I sat there and cried for hours. Didn't stop crying until I fainted in the middle of a luxurious restaurant. People look at me like I'm crazy. Don't blame them. Those who never understand what true love is. After the day I was rejected by you, I couldn't leave my bed. For how long, I don't remember. Maybe 2 weeks or more. I only went out when I'm exhausted from starving myself. But instead of going to the supermarket, I couldn't help but follow the familiar route, leading to your apartment. Heather, do you know? When I saw you through the window, I felt more relieved than ever. Just as I felt the fire in me rekindle, I saw that man, the man you always hated. Who the hell he thought he was to touch you, hug you, and even put his dirty lips on your cheek. The moment you lower the window curtain, to be honest, you shut down my heart. Don't know how I got home, but you know what? When I came back to my apartment, everything I saw was the empty room and the cuts on my body. I didn't want to live anymore. I looked at your photos and decided to make another cut on my body. Blood drops. Sting. And I thought, would things be different if I died? Can I change things, even just a little bit? And that night, with a picture of you in my hand, a plan gradually formed in my head. Heather Gray, has been a few days since that man didn't pick up your phone. Well, he's dead. It's not hard to find his house and where he hid the keys. I was already hiding in the closet and waiting for him to come back from your house. I have to tell you, it's really not a pleasant feeling to do, my Heather. I had to wait a long time, and when night fell and the man was fast asleep, I acted. With the knife that I intended to end my life with, I used to end his life. Just one neat cut across the neck. He was already awake. But I was reckless. He's not a decent man. Before he died, he frantically clung to me, scratching me so hard, my skin bled. I watched him convulse, struggle, and suffocate in his own blood ocean. Before he grasped the last air, he still dared to ask me who I was. And I said, I'm your lover, Heather Gray. His blood splashed on me, got on all over my body, my face and hands. I felt disgusted, so I burned him and burned his house. Don't worry, police couldn't find me for now. I felt better after this, but still not completely. I was still missing something. It was you. I needed you. The plan would never be complete without you. You say, my love's burning for you. It's not enough. Well, I burned him for you. I burned you, and I burned us. 'cause I know that's the only way. Heather Gray, I'm burning everything just for you. Now it's enough, right? Now we can be together, right? I'm gonna ask you again. Will you be my Valentine?
My girlfriend, Rosamund, was an Instagram influencer famous for her vegetarian lifestyle. To me, her eating habit was way annoying, especially when we hung out together. For example, while all I wanted was a quick meal at McDonald's, Rosamund was the opposite. She really hated it when I munched a burger. On one of our dates, we decided to go shopping, then eat out at noon. On the long street, we couldn't find any other restaurants other than McDonald's.
No, not again!
Rosamund shook her head. Come on, Rosie. I'm so hungry. You don't love me anymore, huh? I insisted. After a while, she eventually reluctantly followed me to my heaven of fast food. Rosamund seemed so disturbed at the menu.
Looks like I have to starve myself again.
She got angry because there were no vegan dishes. She left me at the counter and stormed to the booth. So I ordered my usual Big Mac combo meal and an unsweetened iced tea. When I came back with the food, Rosamund suddenly changed her attitude. Just a few seconds ago, she was mindlessly scrolling through Instagram.
Hope you enjoy eating meat. Yay!
She pouted and turned away. She acted as though I were sinning just because I was eating a burger. Come on, Rosie. One bite won't make you sick. I begged her again.
One bite? It's meat! Don't you care about those animals?
Rosie frowned at me, then pointed at the burger with an annoyed expression. I understood that she was vegan, so she was annoyed to see me eat meat, but her reaction was too much. After a while, the manager came to our table. I was expecting to be kicked out, but he just smiled gently and offered his hand to Rosamund. It turned out he recognized my famous girlfriend and offered her $500 to review McDonald's new dish. To our surprise, he gave Rosamund a small box with the McDonald's logo. This is a special combo only available at McDonald's. I hope you will consider this offer. They're all vegan, he said, winking. Rosamund looked at the box, then back at the manager incredulously. The manager nodded affirmatively. So Rosamund took the box from the manager and said she would consider the offer. That night, my girlfriend live-streamed about a McDonald's food box instead of the usual high-fiber dishes. She gobbled everything in the box, and after every bite was a compliment about McDonald's food. But just as the live stream ended, she immediately ran to the bathroom and threw up everything.
There's no way that was vegan.
She grimaced and looked so annoyed. To be honest, I thought she was merely acting. But what surprised me more was that she asked me to go to McDonald's. Had she really changed her mind? When I entered the restaurant, I couldn't believe my eyes. Rosamund was sitting in front of a large order of fries, chicken, burgers, and soda. And she was devouring all of them like crazy. Rosie, are you okay? I sat down in front of her. Are these all vegan? She continued to shove the food into her mouth as if she were starving. Even though I was a McDonald's fan, I was a bit disgusted to see my girlfriend acting like this. She was like a robot, eating a bunch of food within minutes without any intention of stopping. I mean, the amount of food on the table seemed too much for even two people. Rosamund, are you all right? I worried. Looking around, I recognized some other KOLs that I followed on Instagram. They were behaving as ridiculous as my girlfriend. The manager I encountered of the previous day was giving the same special boxes to those customers. After this, we had a quarrel about how she was completely ignoring me and only paying attention to the food. But Rosamond just didn't care about me, and she didn't post anything on Instagram either. After 3 days, I'd had enough, so I came to her house to find her. Gosh, the floor was covered in paper boxes and cups, some with leftovers, and they were all from McDonald's. Sitting on the sofa, my beautiful Rosamond was no longer herself. She looked literally like a human balloon. Her face was full of grease and oil. She could barely move with her limp legs, and her hands kept shoving food into her mouth. Rose! Rose! I was freaked out and worried. I tried to stop her, but she just kept ignoring me. She went totally crazy for the food. Listen to me. She was just busy with her stuffing career. Finally, I had to call 911. Rosamond was taken to the hospital. At the same time, the food was taken for examination. It turned out that in those special boxes, there was a sort of strongly addictive chemical that forced people into stuffing themselves and making their bodies bloat up. The evil manager, who was now wanted by the police, ran away with the money. And my Rosamond, I don't think she'll ever recover her mental health.
McDonald's! McDonald's! I want McDonald's! Give me McDonald's! Give me McDonald's!
My brother saw a ghost as a kid. 10 years later, I realized what he actually saw. So I was about 8 years old. My little brother was about 5. We lived in a fairly sparsely populated area since our dad worked construction out of town back then. It was often just 3 of us at the house for weeks. One summer morning, I went to my brother's room to wake him up for breakfast. That summer was quite hot, so everyone was drenched in sweat. But my brother was still covered with a blanket. Pulling off the blanket, I saw my brother's back was wet. His face was white and sweaty. When I asked him why he was covered in blankets in the middle of summer, he turned grumpy and said, "It's a secret. I can't tell you." To my surprise, I went down to the house to ask my mother, and she said that this situation has lasted for nearly a week now. That night, a hailstorm appeared out of nowhere. Since we were both excited, Mum let us stay up later than usual. It was well past our bedtime when our mum woke up off the couch to put us to bed. My brother and Mum both had a habit of waking up in the middle of the night to use the bathroom. I only knew this because I was always a light sleeper, and they just couldn't help flushing with the door wide open. This night, however, my brother stopped on his way to his room and came back towards the bathroom. I'm going to try to pee before I go to bed. The past few nights, I've been too afraid to walk to the bathroom. After a while of asking what scared my brother so much, he finally told me to bend down, then whispered in my ear, "Our house is haunted." Ignoring my cowardly expression, he continued, "That night, I thought it was Dad, so I approached him, but it was a mistake. There was a ghost with wild white eyes and was always dressed in orange. He said he won't harm you and Mum if I promise not to tell anyone. But I broke my promise." I was terrified by it. The fear of seeing a ghost like that at the end of the hallway or through the windows is the reason I started running from the stairs to my bedroom at night. After the summer vacation ended, my brother didn't mention it anymore, and I forgot about it too. Years later, when I was about 18, my mom and I had a conversation while we were on the run. We were sharing stories about Max's tendency towards destroying my shoes and other unruly behaviors when my mom blurted out, "Do you remember that time I opened the front door for the cops and Max ran inside to the kitchen and started tearing open that big bag of dog food we had?" This really caught me by surprise because in all the years I lived in that house, we never once called the cops. I asked her what she was talking about and she looked equally surprised, as if she had just revealed something by accident. "Oh, that's right. I never told you because you were too young at the time." And this is what my mother told me. On the day of the hailstorm when I was 8, my house was broken into by a stranger. That night, she got up at 3 a.m. to go to the toilet. As soon as she came out of the room, my mother suddenly heard a noise in the kitchen. She looked down from the stairs and saw a dim shadow. Mom was extremely scared but still tried to keep her eyes open. Suddenly there was a flash of thunder, lightning through the window, allowed her to see the face of that person. And at the same time, he was startled and looked up the stairs, his eyes meeting hers. Those wild eyes haunted my mom for many years. My mother quickly grabbed the phone and carried my little brother into my room, locked the door, then immediately dialed 911. She couldn't remember all the details she gave them. A tall white man wearing a faded orange suit, something like that. Police said my mother's description matched the description of a man they were looking for in the area. It turns out he had escaped from jail on a murder charge. Now, I know it sounds so obvious hearing those two stories back to back, but it wasn't until last night that I pieced everything together. Both my mother and I, we never knew that my brother had unknowingly warned us about a murderer who spent multiple nights casing our home. What my brother saw was not a ghost or an imaginary figure, but a murderer that stayed in our house for no one knows how long. And since my brother broke his promise, he actually could kill us at any time. Maybe that night, he did plan it. Maybe that sound my mom heard from the kitchen is that he was finding a knife to kill all of us.
Brittany, Valerie, and Allison were a group of close friends who went to play Escape Room Backroom version. In this version, players didn't have to discover clues or solve puzzles to find the exit, but they would experience the levels via VR glasses. Different levels had different frights that the girls had to face to find the way out. After taking 3 pills of cardiotonic from the game instructor, they put on the VR glasses. When Brittany opened her eyes, she found herself in a yellow hallway filled with an annoying musty smell and absolute quiet. Picking up her walkie-talkie, she gave it a try by calling her friends.
Hello? Val? Alice, do you hear me?
Yes. All right, girls, let's rock.
Brittany walked on the deserted hallway. There was nothing but her footsteps. She had passed many turns, but hadn't found anything else along this empty hallway.
Where's the door?
I found a door. Pity girls. I'm winning this game.
Valerie said in the walkie-talkie. Brittany seemed a bit impatient because Allison soon also found the door to the next level while she was still in the same spot in the empty hall. Suddenly, she saw a monster ahead in one corner. Startled and scared, Brittany decided to turn into another cross, which was just an extension of the hallway so far, with boring yellow walls, the musty smell, and the mildew. The walkie-talkie had lost its signal for a while. Now, being totally lost in repeated space, Brittany started to get impatient and fatigued. Brittany was startled and looked around. Still that empty and humid hallway, but there were footsteps echoing. and they became louder and louder. Seemed like a creature was moving faster and faster. The only thing Brittany could do was run away from that thing. But the more she tried to run, the louder the footsteps became. Lonely and terrified, she became more panicked. Finally, she found a door in front. That must be the exit. No time to think, she rushed to it. And at the very moment when she twisted the doorknob, something touched her back. Brittany sat down for relief and then tried to call the others.
Alice! Val? Anyone hear me? Alice! Val!
That was Allison's voice.
Alice? Are you okay?
Allison sharply exhaled. It seemed that she was met with something terrified there.
Bree! Val is dead!
Allison bursted into tears. The news squeezed her heart. The walkie-talkie lost signal again.
Alice? Alice!
There was no reply, and Brittany, once again, was left alone. She needed to find Allison. The footsteps echoed in the hallway. Brittany immediately recalled the memory of the monster, so she kept running and running. The moment Brittany looked back, a black shadow ran into her and made her fall to the ground. The feeling of pain ran through her body.
Bree!
Luckily, that was Allison that bumped into her. The two girls were delighted.
Let's get out of here.
Finally, there was a door at the end of the hallway. But before they reached the door, a black shadow ran into Allison and made her fall down.
No!
Brittany screamed when she saw the sight. She couldn't feel her legs anymore, and she just kept shivering in fear. The man in black costume turned into Brittany. Having no time for tears, she rushed to the door. When she opened it, a bright, lighted space swallowed up her whole body. Brittany woke up, panicked, and looked around. There was still the room with the green screen, but the two chairs were empty.
Allison? Valerie?
They've gone already. The game instructor suddenly appeared from the middle of nowhere. Brittany checked her phone.
They didn't wait for me then.
On her way home, she was still scared of what happened. Then she was startled when she found the bloodline on her shoes. The memories of the hallway events to break into your house. That day, Olivia was home alone. She was lying on her bed and texting with Alex, just a random guy she met online recently. Mom called and told her to check the doors carefully before going to bed. Mom was right to be worried. In the past few days, there had been people disguised as creepy clowns wandering off the streets. But anyway, those cases were reported from South Carolina, while Olivia's house was in Illinois. Those idiot clowns would never come to this neighborhood.
Don't forget to double-check the window. Mom, I got it. I'm 17. I'm not a child anymore.
Olivia was a little annoyed because her mother kept treating her like a child. After a few minutes, she hung up the phone. Just as Olivia was about to return to her room, there was a sudden knock on the front door.
Who could be here at this time? Ugh, so annoying.
She mumbled while getting to the door, but when she looked through the peephole on the door, there was no one outside. It must be the bratty kid Tony next door with his new trick, she thought, and walked up the stairs. Then came the knock again, and this time it made Olivia really angry. She crept to the door, preparing to swing it open and scold the boy. But when she looked through the peephole again, Olivia jumped in fear. On the outside, there was a wide-open, bloodshot eye. It was so close to the peephole. There was no kid outside, but a man in a clown costume. He was staring at the people at the same time Olivia was. And not only did he stare in, but he was also grinning weirdly, waving his hand and banging on the door repeatedly. After a while, the breaking in failed, and he suddenly left the house. Thinking he had given up, Olivia breathed a sigh of relief. But just a few seconds later, she saw his shadow flickering through the window. He was heading towards the kitchen. He repeatedly turned the doorknob, but still could not get in. He didn't stop, but continued to walk towards the back door. Oh my God! Olivia couldn't remember whether she locked the back door or not. Frightened and trembling, Olivia ran upstairs looking for somewhere to hide. She didn't dare get near any door because the clown was out there and he might catch her. No room seemed safe enough, she thought, her hand shaking as she dialed the phone. But damn, it already ran out of battery power. Olivia burst into tears. She had never felt so scared and helpless. Now that the clown got into the house, she could clearly hear his footsteps from downstairs. The clown was holding a knife in his hand, walking around slowly in the living room. He had just whistled, echoing through the quiet house, scaring Olivia even more. Something had fallen to the ground. Olivia covered her mouth not to make a peep. She was afraid to death. The clown slowly walked along the hallway, opening every door he passed. And then he suddenly sped up toward the stairs, coming up with sick and twisted ideas. Deadly silence. Olivia could no longer hear anything but the sound of her heart pounding wildly. She was about to open the door, but the footsteps came again. Now he was right in front of Olivia's room and opened the door. The half-open wardrobe caught his attention. He gave a wry smile and crept over. He opened the wardrobe, but there was no one inside. Olivia was under the bed. She didn't dare to even breathe heavily, only focused on his feet moving around. The clown was so close, step by step. He walked towards the bed where the panicking girl was hiding. Her whole body was petrified, so much that she couldn't even move an inch. Until the police cordoned off the entire house and found Olivia shivering under the bed, still alive. The clown had run away, and the police never found him. Olivia's mom was the one to dial 911 right after she checked the security camera and some weeks relaxing somewhere in the suburbs. This year, I decided to find a place on Craigslist. You know, on Craigslist, you can buy or rent anything. I mean anything. So I found a fully furnished 2-story apartment for $800 a month. After finishing the forms they required, I moved into the accommodation. The owner had opened the door before I arrived. Impressive. I was glad he did that. But then I realized this house was not like I expected. It looked dark and a bit mysterious and smelt like something fishy, which almost made me throw up. When I opened the kitchen window, I saw some blood streaks on the sink. Maybe the owner had not cleaned up after cooking. Oh, that would explain the smell. I sighed and washed them away. The rest of the house was not any better. Every room was so messy and covered in a thin dust layer. I was quite disappointed. No wonder the rent was only $800. I went out into the yard to sit on the swing for a while, and then made a video call to my fiancée, Hazel. While talking with her, I noticed a man standing outside the fence staring at me. "Hi, can I help you?" I smiled politely, but he didn't say anything, just got into the car and drove away.
What's the matter?
Hazel asked. "No problem, just a weird old man." Through the screen, I took Hazel on a tour around the house. I showed her the floor with many colorful rugs, among which there was a rug with the vintage pattern that she loved so much. But it smells bad. Seemed like no one had ever washed it for a century. Maybe tomorrow I'll call the cleaning service. In the evening, I went to prepare dinner. I switched on the light. Nothing happened. However I tried, those lights did not light up. I went to check the main panel only to find that the fuse was burnt black. I felt like I was cheated by the house owner. What the hell is that? I was startled to see the weird old man again, driving slowly along the road and staring at me through the glass doors. And he smiled. "Sir, is there anything I can do for you?" But he disappeared before I got to the door. What's wrong with this guy? I mumbled and went into the house. The next morning, I called an electrician to fix the light system. After an hour, a guy named Nick rang the doorbell. He walked into the house and immediately covered his nose.
Sir, forgive me if I was rude, but do you smell something like dead rats in this house?
He asked me. I sniffed and realized that was the smell I found yesterday.
This looks like a murder scene.
Nick laughed, but immediately stopped when he saw me frowning.
But I must say the house smells very horrible.
Yeah, maybe it was from the dirty rugs. I'm gonna have them cleaned now, I said. Then Nick offered to help me take those rugs to the laundromat. While waiting for him to check the electrical system, I went out to the yard to make a phone call.
I'm afraid you may also need to call the rat exterminators,
Nick said while helping me lift the rug to his car. Both of us were dizzy because of its odor.
Oh, what the hell is that?
Nick suddenly said. When we lifted it up to see what was beneath, Nick and I both froze. Underneath the rug was a human-shaped stain, on which were traces of liquid, blood, and something I couldn't even name. There were also blood stains on the floor. I followed the trails of blood and discovered that there was blood underneath all the rugs. Both Nick and I couldn't hold it anymore. We ran out of the house and threw up. After my call, the police quickly came to investigate and got in touch with the homeowner. But his answer took us back.
This isn't my house?
Nick and I looked at each other without saying a word. It turned out that the house next door was the one I rented on Craigslist and should have moved in, not this one. Meanwhile, the house I just spent one night in belonged to the strange old man I met. I couldn't help but tremble when thinking that maybe last night he snuck into the house and tried to kill me. How lucky I was. The door was locked, so he couldn't get in. A waiter brought the food out. That sandwich seemed so alluring. And then I took a bite. Oh my gosh, it was, how to say, so divine. It tasted so different from the other sandwiches I tried before. I couldn't help devouring it. Just after a few minutes, the food boxes were empty. Oh no, oh no, look what I just did. Guilt quickly engulfed me. I was scared and frustrated, and then ran out of the store. That night, I had a high fever and terrible nausea, so I rushed to the bathroom. Strangely enough, I didn't vomit, but instead coughed violently. And then, from my mouth, I pulled out a feather. And when I looked in the mirror, I discovered that I had white hairs on my face, and they felt very itchy. I picked them up. Ouch! Were these hairs growing out from me?
Michael, are you okay?
My mother nervously called at the door.
I'm fine. I didn't want my mom to know all of this. I gritted my teeth and endured it, tried to pull out the hairs one by one, even though my face was bleeding. I shouldn't have eaten it. I shouldn't have eaten it. After getting rid of the hairs, I went to bed and prepared to sleep. I hid those chicken feathers under the pillow. The next morning, I woke up tired. I yawned, but realized my voice was different. Okay, wait, what happened to my throat? I screamed, but the only sound that came out was a chicken croaking. I panicked and ran to the bathroom. Oh my God, my head had turned into a chicken's head. I cried.
Michael, what's in there? Are you okay?
My mother banged on the door. How could I let my mother see this form? But she kept banging on the door nervously. I panicked, put on my hat, and ran out of the room. I turned into a monster! I broke down, sobbed, but only heard the chicken croaking. I dared not raise my head to see people. As I ran across the Chick-fil-A store, the smell of fried chicken invited me in again. I didn't dare to speak, but only pointed at the menu with my sleeve. No one had seen my monstrous appearance. My delicious dish was brought out. I was about to eat when a staff member accidentally spilled a glass of water on me. So I reflexively took off my hat. She saw my appearance and shouted. Monster. Everyone in there started to yell.
Monster! Monster!
Those eyes made me panic. I was so scared, so dizzy that I could barely stand. I'm a monster! I rushed out of the Chick-fil-A store in a panic.
Hey! Please wait!
I couldn't hide my horrible appearance. People's eyes made my heart break. Monster. I was about to turn into a chicken. It was my mother.
Michael! Michael! Where are you? Where are you?
She sounded so scared and worried. I wished I could call her, wished I could tell her what happened. But what came out of my mouth was just... And then when I was in despair, I didn't even notice that I was out in the middle of the road. I woke up to find myself in the hospital. Panicked, I raised my hand to touch my face. My whole face was bandaged. Mommy? Keen-eyed guy she had swiped left a few minutes ago. Hi. He started first, just the way she liked. So two of them texted each other for hours until he asked to meet Hazel for a coffee somewhere. So she would meet Noah at a vintage bar downtown. She was so excited to see this handsome guy. But when she got there, Noah hadn't arrived. So she sat down at a table in the corner to wait. The doorbell rang. A well-dressed guy with neat and trendy hair walked in. Hazel wasn't sure, but when she saw those mesmerizing eyes, no more doubt. That was exactly the one.
Noah.
Hi, are you Hazel? He asked and smiled. Hazel couldn't help but keep staring into Noah's eyes. His green eyes were so intense. Noah was still waiting for the answer.
Yes, I'm Hazel. Have a seat.
So the two started a conversation. Everything seemed to go smoothly, except for an awkward moment when Hazel paused for too long, staring into Noah's beautiful eyes. You all right? He asked.
Yeah.
She took a sip of wine.
Oh, but I have to say that your eyes are so pretty, Noah.
Hazel suddenly leaned forward as if to make eye contact, causing Noah to jump back a little.
I wish I could have those eyes of green.
Then Hazel wanted to touch his eyes, but suddenly she felt dizzy,
everything around her spinned. Hazel felt something was wrong, and when she looked over at Noah, she only saw his eyes staring at her and smiling evilly. Hazel reached her hands to Noah, but before she could do anything, she collapsed on the table. Hazel woke up to feel her whole body heavy like water. She could barely open her eyes.
Where is this place?
She looked around. This was an old, dilapidated room with a strong, musty smell. And there was a small window that looked over a vast forest. This place looked like an abandoned house. She heard footsteps and then sat up and waited to see that face again. All she could do now was shake in fear. That was Noah. He greeted her with that smile again. Good to see you back. He grinned so weirdly.
Let me out, Noah! Let me out! Let me out!
Scream however you want. No one can hear you anyways.
Noah looked at his prey in fear.
Hey, naive girl. Don't you know that there are a lot of bad people on Tinder? How can you go meet someone you just talked to so easily?
Noah pressed Hazel's face. His hand lifted her chin up. She stared at those eyes, which were now full of evil thoughts. He threw her on the floor. Her back hit the ground. She struggled with all her might, but her hands were restrained, so she couldn't move. Noah laughed out loud when he saw that. But this was out of his expectation.
Damn it, Hazel!
He screamed.
This is not good!
Noah fell on his back. He didn't expect that while he was still busy fidgeting, Hazel broke free of the ropes and waited for an opportunity to counterattack and surprise him. Noah was angry. His green eyes were full of red blood. He must punish Hazel. Noah staggered back and was horrified by the wound on his chest. In Hazel's hand was a knife hidden in a comb. Now he saw Hazel crouched close to his face. Her innocent face now seemed so different, so evil. Noah tried to raise his hands to grab her, but he was like a fish out of water, unable to do anything.
Hey, be quiet. Everything will be all right.
Ignoring Noah writhing in pain, Hazel got up and paced around the room to examine.
Thank you for leading me to such a wonderful place where no one could hear your miserable screams.
Hazel sneered. Noah was so scared. What are you gonna do?
Oh, don't cry. Your eyes won't look good anymore.
Hazel stroked Noah's hair, comforting. Noah panicked, weakly trying to back away, but Hazel had a knife in her hand.
It won't hurt.
Hazel gently placed that pair of eyes covered with blood and cords inside the small box.
So beautiful!
Hazel lay in her room, her legs dangling in delight, her fingers gliding Tinder evenly.
Ooh. This color is so pretty too.
A new match from Tinder. Subway food store for more than 15 minutes. Gosh, this store had never been this crowded. It had been like that ever since those two new girls came. Whatever. I just wanted to order my favorite bread. But they worked so slow that the waiting line got very long. One of the girls saw me and sighed and looked away. I remembered her. Her name was Ashley. A few days ago, I came to Subway to buy food, and even though I had told her exactly 15 times that I didn't want ketchup, she didn't listen to me at all. I lost my temper and then had a quarrel with Ashley. Finally, the manager came to apologize to me, while Ashley got a day's salary deducted. But what still annoyed me was her attitude. What an obnoxious hussy. She muttered something to the employee next to her. They definitely were talking about me.
Hey, what took so long?
Ashley stopped whispering. She sneered and then got back to her work, and she threw a glance at me. Finally, it was my turn to order. Ashley went inside right when I came to her.
What would you like to order, sir?
The other girl, named Julia, looked a bit shy.
1 chicken and bacon ketchup melt, no ketchup, please. Bear in mind, no ketchup. No ketchup. Got it?
I repeated many times just to make sure. I decided to follow Julia without her noticing when she brought my order in there.
Hey, no ketchup,
Julia said to Ashley.
He'll never know.
Ashley sneered while pouring ketchup over my bread. I told her not to. Damn it. As if that wasn't enough, she spat a puddle of saliva onto the bread.
He deserves it. And don't you tell the manager.
Ashley threatened Julia. At that moment, I just wanted to rush over and rip that Ashley to pieces. Then the two girls walked out.
Please, come and take your meals.
I'm not taking this.
Sir, I didn't put the sauce in, as you asked.
Really? I saw her spit on my food.
I pointed out to Ashley. Her eyes kept rolling because of that.
Sir, what are you talking about? We never did.
I saw you do it with my own eyes. You did it.
Ashley asked me to show evidence, but who needed proof? I had seen it with my naked eyes.
You were there. Tell everyone.
I pointed at Julia, but she was so scared that she stammered and ended up defending her colleague.
No, we never did.
Fine. Then what is this? I said no ketchup dressing!
There was no way that witch could get out of this. So she kept quiet, and Julia apologized and offered to make another bread. Meanwhile, the culprit Ashley immediately stormed inside.
Remember, no ketchup!
I was good with Julia. She was a better waitress. However, she immediately proved the opposite because she put ketchup onto my bread again. Ever since I stepped into this goddamned place, these two dumbasses had been making fun of me. I couldn't stand them anymore.
I told you, no ketchup!
Sir, I'm sorry. Please calm down. This is a mistake.
Mistake my ass!
I stormed in and grabbed the fork in the jar and rushed to her. Julia covered her face, screaming in pain. Damn it! Damn it! I frantically stabbed her even though she was crying in deadly pain. Right. I had to kill her. I had to kill her. She must die.
Go to hell!
Julia!
That witch. It was all her fault. That devil Ashley finally came out. I furiously rushed to her with my fork.
Time to die! Time to die!
I didn't remember how many times I stabbed her. But when I stopped, she was lying there in a pool of blood. And then a group of people quickly rushed over to suppress me. Ashley was dead right after that. Julia went to the hospital and I was brought here. It was all Ashley's fault. It was because of her that no one believed me, and I was brought here. I told her not to put the ketchup in, but she didn't listen at all.
No ketchup! No ketchup! No ketchup!